Welcome to the Lost Lowdown podcast 198 with your hosts, Claude and Justin.
What's up, guys?
We are back, continuing our season 6 commentary series with episode 614, The Candidate.
The candidate. Who is the candidate? That is the question I was thinking about before the podcast.
I concur, Justin. That is a relevant question to inquire post hints.
I went full robot. I didn't mean to do that. I apologize.
And did you see that I my instinct was to go full robot, but then I reeled it back in?
Yeah. I was doing that at first, but then I lost it, and then it was too late to recover, so I just had to lean in. Sometimes you do that, right? You go too far, and so you just have to go that much farther.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, fake it till you make it, and then fake harder.
And then keep faking. And then never stop faking, and then forget if you're faking or not. And just concentrate on the making it. All right. Well, that was a weird intro. I don't know why that happened. But listen, this is our 198th podcast, and if we can't get a little silly finally after all these years, then
we've been so
doing
serious for the
last is the most serious podcast ever.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this for almost 15 years at this point, and we've been like really serious most of the time. Dry as a bone,
dry,
bone dry,
like an overcooked chicken. I mean, that's what people used to say. We're the overcooked chicken of Lost podcast.
They did say that, and I thought that was a weird thing to say.
It was super because you're vegan, so it was like,
it makes me uncomfortable.
But I eat chicken, so I got it.
I'm a little uncomfortable with.
What you're uncomfortable with?
Being compared to a live chicken.
Oh, you're not Chicken Boo?
No. Oh my God! Don't tell them my secret. God!
All this time
now.
Yeah, no, because you had us all fooled, but then one day it was obvious that you were a chicken.
Oh my God! Oh my God! This is so embarrassing. We almost made it. We're so close.
So close. You were like, "Can we fool the world into thinking I'm not
find
a live chicken?"
As soon as I turn the mic off, all I say is cluck cluck.
You're always clucking around.
That's all I say.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought about the math, and we're about to be podcasting for 20 years soon, which sounds insane and unfathomable. But yeah, in a few short years, it will technically make it 20 years. Which is like a career.
Yeah, it is.
And I say like because most careers you get money from.
Have we not made money yet, even with all these sponsorships?
So many sponsorships.
What's going on? We're selling the shit out of like Squarespace and like
all Squarespace, Wix, and anything you can make a website. Can you make a website with it? It's our sponsor.
Audible,
Audible.
Like nowadays it's like online counseling because everyone's like needs counseling.
Hey, if you need therapy, guess what? It's our sponsor.
Yeah, we are sending you there. Put in the code Lost Lowdown to get 20%.
Please use our referral code and enjoy your brand new psyche.
Yeah, exactly. Your peace of mind will be on us.
20%
of it.
Well, full price after the first month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 20% off first purchase, but full price thereafter.
Okay.
Do we want to talk about Lost or?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Were we not? I felt like
we're always talking about Lost because Lost is about life. So anything that's happening is about Lost because anything that's happening is life.
You fucking nailed it. I actually think that all of life is merely a commentary on Lost.
That's also true.
So I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure that not only have we been talking about loss this entire time and the entire podcast, but also so have you.
Mhm. Mhm.
And by you, I mean the listener.
The royal you.
Yeah, the royal you, exactly.
Mhm.
I just want to know, I'm addressing the audience. I don't do that very often. This time I did.
Wait, we have an audience?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, those numbers got to mean something, right?
Those numbers gotta mean something.
There's like Vince, you know, like sometimes people say things. I don't know. I think people listen.
So
Somebody listens.
many people listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see where to start.
Where to start? I mean, I have a ton of things. It's probably not that much, but I have a few things I want to say.
Nah.
Okay. So what do you got? What else? What else do I have besides the things I wanted to say?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, you know what I used to do is look up Google News. Do they still have that? Let's see. What's happening today?
What's Madonna doing?
Top stories. Let's see. Boring. Boring. Okay, sorry. These stories are horrible. Okay. I used to read like fun news. Let's see. Who did you say? Madonna?
What's Madonna doing?
Okay, let's look.
She's always topical.
Let's see what Madonna's doing. Staying relevant for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Madonna name meaning. What does Madonna mean? Is it the singer's real name?
Let's find out. That's what all of our listeners are here for.
Let's see. But what is her real name?
I've got some fun non-Madonna news.
Oh, okay.
An Idaho man eats 107 blueberries in 1 minute for Guinness record.
Who counted the blueberries? And how?
Well, the way counting works is such. Step 1.
Do tell.
Count.
Okay.
Step 1's also
step 2.
Yeah.
And also, how are you counting the steps?
Oh, you don't count the steps. That's where you go wrong. Oh, my friend. Oh, if you count the steps, it's not. And so the candidate.
Yeah, the candidate. So, yeah, hey, Lost, right? Cool show. Cool show,
bro.
Cool show, bro. Yeah, so I'm still reading news. I need to stop doing this. Okay. So yeah, I've been listening to,
Hey, wait. Hey, Justin.
Yes.
What have you been up to?
Who, me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, not much, Usually.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, what's Madonna doing?
Madonna. Oh, Madonna. Her real name is Madonna. I found out.
Oh, wow.
It's real.
I thought it was something else.
If you thought it was fake, you were wrong.
Well, I was wrong.
Yeah, no, in all seriousness, yeah. So I'm gonna say a couple things. So first thing I want to say is do I want to say this? Fuck it. So there's this last podcast out there. There's actually like a number of them now. I feel like it's like, is it retro cool? Is it like just a part of the general phenomenon of, revisiting TV shows? Like, is it both? Could it be neither? There's a lot of options there, but for whatever reason, there's a growing number of Lost sort of rewatch style podcasts. And there was one that I was listening to for a while that like spun off from a Game of Thrones podcast that I was listening to, and I had to stop listening to it because they had this conceit where it was like they wouldn't talk about spoilers. Like they've seen the show, right? They've seen the whole show, but they would talk about it like they hadn't, and I've just always found that really frustrating. Yeah, but then sometimes they would slip and say something that's a spoiler, and then they would beep it out. And it was just like, I don't know. It just seemed ridiculous to me. So anyway, I had to like let go of that. Like they had a small section at the end that was like the spoiler section, but like it's like way de-emphasized, and to me it's the only interesting part, and it's like they don't care about it. So anyway, whatever. I had to move on from that one. Strong, don't recommend personally. It's called The Storm, but don't listen to it. Anyway. But there's this other one, newish one, and you know, they have like big media connections, so they've had like super famous guests and stuff. Actually, both of the podcasts have, but this one is called The Hatch. Actually, we talked about it a while ago when we did the Desmond episode. Because they did a big like poll of the greatest episodes, you know, and the constant one, and like I went on a long rant about Desmond back then. Anyway, this was connected with that, and you know, it's like fairly breezy. It's not Lost Lowdown style at all, but they don't make a pretense of not having seen the show. They talk about the show. They talk about the stuff that happens later. There's no like fake non-spoiler thing. And, you know, there's interesting stuff. They have some pretty good guests. They've, you know, had a lot of people from the show on. They've had David Lindelof on, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, if you want like the pithy yet still somewhat entertaining Lost rewatch, it's a pretty good one. I recommend that one. Anyway.
Are you trying to get our listeners to leave us?
Not exactly.
The segment is?
Not exactly. I rarely find something that satisfies, you know, because I'm so deep in the weeds, and I do have this problem even with that podcast where it's like, you know, people who just aren't quite as into it, like, will just be a little off on certain things, and like it just frustrates me. But it's like, you know, it's kind of ridiculous to compare because we've been talking about this for so long, you know. So speaking of that. So I've also been listening to this other podcast that's like honestly probably my favorite one. It's called The Lost Lowdown.
Never heard of it.
It's me either. But I found it, and it's like super cool. And yeah,
I bet one of their hosts is awesome, and the other host is like you're just put up with.
Awesome.
But you never know which is which.
Oh, I like that. I like that there's mystery in there.
Oh, you like mysteries?
I do like mysteries.
Spoiler alert.
It's a secret about me that few know or care to know. Anyway, so yeah, I was listening to that. A very old one, Lost Lowdown number 5. Which is a season 1 retrospective covering the pilot through episode 5, I believe.
That's
which is well, yeah. So I've also been rewatching the show from the beginning, and so it just coincided with that nicely.
Gotcha.
It's super interesting to hear us at that stage because it's such an early stage.
Mm-hmm.
A few things stood out to me about it. The first thing was that like we're like so down on the characters, like I can't believe how fed up we are with like Locke and Charlie and Curly and Sawyer. We've just had it. Like we're just like so like oh this character, I'm so sick of these people, you know, like like when Walkabout started. I don't know if you remember this, but like, you know, at the beginning they find this boar like going through, or boars going through the fuselage, or not fuselage, but part of the plane. And you're like, you know how Locke knew that it was boars in there? And then you say, because Locke's a boar.
Yep. I remember that. Wow, I remember that.
Classic pun.
Yep.
So anyway, I was just really striking because, you know, I have the sense of the characters degrading like more so later, but it's like barely after season 2, and like we're already kind
Well,
of
we're
fed
fed
up.
up because they're not doing the thing we want them to do. You
Yeah,
know, we had that whole theory that part of the effects of the island is making you it lowers your ambition to leave the island, you know,
right.
that whole idea of like, yeah, for some reason they don't talk to each other about their crazy experiences. Okay, maybe that's part of the island's influence, you know.
Right. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah, that was
what's
the
it called
thing.
the
Oh, and your Vincent is smoky theory is one
mm,
where I really, and I actually acknowledged this when we got to the missing pieces, which is another one that I listened to recently.
mhm.
That, like you have this theory about Vincent being a smoke monster, and like not only that, you took it a step further, and this was what really shocked me. You were like, because I was like, how? Like, how is Walt's dog the smoke monster? Like, that makes
Yeah.
no sense to me. Like the smoke monster was like living in Australia, like, and you were like, no, no, no. The dog died and the smoke monster is taking its form. And
Wow.
I was like, okay, okay.
Mhm,
Like, I
mhm.
was shocked by how on the right track you were, especially because at that point, we hadn't had the Yemi episode yet. Like, they hadn't
Mhm.
really even explicitly confirmed that the smoke monster could take the form of dead people or animals or what have you.
Yeah, wow.
And given the fact that we had a Mobisode where the Smoke Monster and Vincent directly interact, I thought it
Mhm.
was like surprising the fact that you got the mechanics of how it worked and the fact that there was an interaction between the two. Like for a crackpot theory, I was just like, holy shit, that's
Mhm.
really surprisingly close considering how little we knew at the time. Like
Yeah,
super
yeah, it's
close.
crazy. Well, my past self thanks you, and
Um,
my current self says, also thanks. Um, yeah, that's interesting. I too have been listening to old Lost Lowland episodes,
oh, have
uh,
you?
a little bit, and I actually listened to wait for it as I go and find which one it was real quick. Don't forget. Okay, it was episode 78, which was actually our season 6 mid-season retrospective.
Oh my
So
god, I listened to the same one.
the exact same place that we're in the season of 6 now,
That's
right?
literally why I listened to it.
Yeah, so I went back. I didn't listen to the whole thing yet because guess what? It's 6 hours long.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it was actually interesting to hear some of the theories. And one of the things we're really stuck on, of course, looking back at the whole first 13 episodes of season 6 was, just trying to understand what the Flash Sideways is and how it relates to the end of season 5 with Jughead and then,
Yeah,
exploding Jughead and getting back to the
yeah.
present. And then what does that mean about the Flash Sideways island, which is underwater? So we were spending a lot of time trying to explain. I was specifically trying to explain how Jughead could have made the island sink, and
Yeah,
also be the mechanism by which the Losties go from the 70s back to the present timeline. And I kept saying things like, well, there's got to be a reason that the island sank. And hearing, knowing what I know now, it's like that's where I went wrong
right.
because it was the wrong interpretation of why the island was depicted underwater. And it
Yeah,
wasn't because something happened to it that made it go underwater, besides the writers
right.
trying to tell us that the island, and then we were talking about that idea, and then you were like, wow, but what about, the discrepancy? Because part of the problem with that theory was it still didn't explain why the history of some of the Losties before the incident was still different, right? So things
Right.
like um, Roger, Linus, and Ben,
Yeah,
right? And you brought up the fact that Roger Linus was like, "Oh, imagine if we had stayed on the island," and you're like, "Why would they stay on an island that's blowing up a nuclear bomb?" And it's like, okay, yeah, so clearly things are still really weird and different. So
yeah,
but it was weird because it was like, trying to use logic and come up with these answers based on logic, but really not having the right information to even start uh the theorization correctly.
Yeah. Well, that's something you've talked about several times over the years, which is like really trying to make Jughead make sense, for it to matter, like why did they do all that? What purpose did it serve beyond just bringing them back to the present?
Yeah.
And I really hear you with that theory, like turning it into like a way bigger thing than than it ultimately ended up being, which is too bad.
Yeah, again, we get that. We should call that something, because that's a theme on the show of like the storylines that never were, or the explanations that they could just say and it could be true and solve a problem, but they don't say it, so you can't really give them credit for it. And
but you're right, though. Like the two big things that we're off about are Man in Black and Jacob Origins, because we haven't seen Across the Sea yet, and The Flash Sideways. Like we're just off base on those things because what we have to go on is very little. And yeah, we're really not. I think The Flash Sideways would have been easier to guess, honestly, than the Man in Black and Jacob stuff. Although you did say at one point something like, they can't just be from Roman times. That would be too boring. It's just like, oh no.
Yeah.
You're ready for a disappointment.
Yeah. That's what happened.
But yeah, it is interesting also to me how, I guess it's like late enough in the show's run that there's a lot of stuff we talk about in there that's like just perennial topics that we still bring up, and our perspective on it isn't, not that it's like exactly the same, but like it feels very much in the same like general idea of what we were thinking about back then. It was a huge contrast from listening to like number 5, where we're just like very, very naive about where the show's going. Versus like, we know most of it. We just don't know like some of the key bits they choose to go out on, which are like kind of major moments, and it is true that like these last 4, do kind of change the game of season 6.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool to have that, because it was like, even though it's super long, because we cover the whole season, it actually like gives a nice kind of summary of thoughts on all the episodes. It's a little easier to digest than 6 hours on one episode.
Yeah. Trying to go through the podcast for each one. Yeah.
Exactly. Which I did listen to some for the last Recruit. I listened to us do like an hour and a half on the Christian Jack scene and just going through the lines like one at a time, and then comparing them with all the details from the show, and then going over like possible explanations for what Christian was doing at various points and why. It was like, we spent so long in that one scene. It was crazy. Compared to the screen time, I mean, we must have sped up some of the later scenes, because like, yeah, it was just like, and I also think it's interesting how I think I've mentioned this before, and this is also a thing, because the ABCs of Law / like Missing Pieces episode was another one I listened to, and we recorded it live, so we had like a live chat there. And they were like giving us, feedback, and like there was a certain point where like I started saying something that someone typed like, "You've said this already." Nice. Like, oh yeah, I bet. I have things that I just like to come back to. But now I lost my train of thought. So maybe they'll allow me to move on. Anyway. I guess to pivot from that, there's two other. So one other little thing from number 5 that I thought was super cool was that it's the first episode where we talk about joining the LPN.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like you told me on the podcast live. I didn't even know that we joined this Lost Podcasting Network. Like, it's a cool thing. There's this guy Ryan, and we're on there now. And it was crazy to hear.
Like, I'm actually on the website for that post, July 8th, 2006, and we thank Vicky H for her suggestion to add
Vicky
our
H,
podcast to the LPN.
Yeah, we mentioned
and
that.
Apparently, our audience got 10 times bigger. So thanks, Vicky H.
I mean, Vicky H, major supporter. She's still around.
What's Vicky H up to?
I've seen her on Facebook many times. She still comments on Twitter occasionally about the podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's
Vicky H, our first fan.
Our first fan, literally. Like, that's very huge.
Like, we'll never know what the H stands for, and that's the mystery we all need in our lives.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't want to know. We don't need to know. It's better this way.
Let's let the mystery be.
Or
let the mystery H, right?
Indeed. I see what you did there.
Yeah, I said one thing instead of another thing.
Hey, you just explained it. Okay, I remember the thing I wanted to say, which I've said before, but I will now say one more time, which is it's very striking to me how we evolved on that, because by the time it got to the last episode where we have this long scene where Locke, the smoke monster, is like, yeah, I was Christian, whatever.
That's a quote.
Yeah, pretty much. And on the podcast, we were like, I really expected him to say no. We were both on the same page in terms of, like, we did not think that Christian was a smoke monster. And it's just interesting to me because if you go back to the missing pieces, which is chronologically the first time we ever saw, well, not really, because there's White Rabbit, but White Rabbit is like an anomaly.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the first time we see him talk, at least. At Christian as Smoke Monster going to Vincent, wake up my son, blah, blah, blah. And I think it probably also helped that by the time that came on, we had the Mr. Echo episode where it's pretty explicit that the smoke monster is taking the form of Yemi. Mm-hmm. And once you establish that, it becomes a logical thing. And that's exactly what we thought for the podcast for the missing pieces. Like, oh, so Christian must be the smoke monster,
mm-hmm.
Like, we were totally on that page, and that was correct. But then somehow along the way they presented him, I guess, made us stop thinking that was true. And I just think that's odd how that happened. How, like, we had the right answer. It's almost like they told us too much, or they used him too much, or the way they used him was misleading, or something that made us think that there was this Christian character. And he was like, maybe he was like associated somehow, but like we really just didn't think that it was actually the smoke monster. So I just think that's the odd thing. It's weird to go from like right on to like wrong the episode before they reveal that you had been right before, Like, it's like, is the show doing something right or wrong there? I'm not sure.
Probably right.
Would you say right? Okay.
I think if they can keep you guessing and when they make a reveal, it's surprising. I think a reveal being surprising is doing it right. So if they do a reveal and we already guessed it, then depending on the reveal, right? Depending on what they want you to think is kind of, I guess, what you would base it on, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe they want you to think, oh yeah, we'll release the mobisode and people will think that Christian is Man in Black, but then if they know that, then later they can do other things to kind of throw you off from that and then come back to it later, because that's a classic kind of thing, right? It's like a double misdirection thing. I think when you're playing the long game, you almost have to do something like that at a certain point. Like, oh yeah, it's this person. Oh, it's not that person. Oh wait, it is.
Right.
And you're like, oh, okay.
As I think about it, I think another thing that maybe threw me about it was that, we've talked about this many times too. Like, I feel like Smoke Monster MIB is just very much a denier, like, generally. Even if he does do a thing, like, maybe he doesn't even know he's doing it, or he acts like
Are
he
you
doesn't.
saying he takes no responsibility?
I'm saying he takes no responsibility at all.
Oh no! Oh
I didn't do
no!
anything to you, son.
Oh no! Too close to home. Let's
Yeah.
yeah. So
But you know what I'm saying? Like with the claiming and all that, he doesn't act like he has all these powers. And we don't really get a lot of scenes. In fact, we get virtually zero scenes of characters going like, hey, did you appear as this person to me? You know? Like that's kind of the
mhm,
only scene of that type that we really get. And I think that's the other thing that makes it that almost makes me think that even if it was him, he might still deny it,
mhm.
you know? So it's just I don't know, it's weird for him to just like
You think
confirm the
he's the original troll? He's a gaslighter.
thing.
You know what happens when you light gas?
What?
You get smoke.
Oh no.
I know that's the dumbest, scariest thing I've ever said.
Wow. Wow.
Because
Wow.
it's true. That's why he's always gaslighting people because he's a smoke monster. God, this show's so dumb. I love it.
Okay, and then one more small revelation that I had that wasn't really from listening to the podcast, but I was just thinking about the show as a whole and like where we've gone and where we're going. And I realized that the last episode, the last recruit that we did, the Flash Sideways is like a group thing. It kind of cuts between various people's stories. Um, and that's going to be true of this one as well. And then we get Across the Sea, which Across the Sea, like Across the Sea is its own thing, and it definitely fits the pattern of it's a flashback episode, it's a character-centric episode, etc. But then What They Die For and the end, those are both also like group-oriented Flash Sideways stuff where it's not like focusing on one character. So anyway, I had this weird realization that in terms of like the traditional character-centric backstory / flash forward / flash sideways, the last one they do on the show is Everybody Loves Hugo. Like that's the last like normal one that's like single character centric. Anyway, it's just a weird bit of trivia that I never thought about before, that like this formula that they have been doing for the entire show basically like is over now. Just a strange thing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And I feel like it's a weird one to go out on. It's like, oh, that's your last one? Okay. So be it.
I was just on Lostpedia looking up this episode, The Last Recruit, and there's a caption here when Jack jumps off the boat. It says, Jack reclaims his position as a man of faith and refuses to run. And I'm like, wow, Jack's a man of faith?
Yeah, we said that on the podcast too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That proved Jack was a man of faith because he was like, no, I think we should stay because like something might happen and maybe he's afraid and I believe in that we're here for a reason. And it's like it's very much like a Locke type rationale, I guess. So yeah. I mean, overall, I think that is like kind of the Jack arc.
I wish that Locke had said something to Jack, like the actual Locke before he died. I wish, when Locke was going around trying to convince everyone to go back to the island and failing, I wish he had left some words with Jack. I wish there was something that he said that in the moment Jack didn't really engage with, but over time it really started to matter. And maybe you could make a case that something like that happened, but I don't know. I don't feel like they really crystallized it. But this moment where he is explaining why he's going to stay, I think would be the moment to say whatever Locke had told him that could have affected his thinking. Because I'm still just hung up on the fact that we don't really get Locke proper this season, and the effects of his life and his fate, his delusions, but also just of his death, right? And I that's just a thing that I wish that would have just been more satisfying, right? And because I think there's in the end when Jack is fighting, Man in Black Locke, I think Jack does invoke Locke at that point. He says something about Locke, invoking his name in that fight, but I can't quite remember. But I just wanted that more for this season. I wanted Locke's sacrifice to motivate the characters explicitly and not implicitly, and again, like that whole idea that I've said several thousand times of like Man in Black in the body of Locke. I wish somehow Locke's psyche would be at war with Man in Black's psyche, know. And when he's saying, "Don't tell me what I can't do," it's like, oh, it's because you're in the body of Locke, and here's an unforeseen consequence of you taking over his form that you never thought about, you didn't know it could happen. There's some weird difference between now versus any other time. You know what I mean? Like maybe when Man in Black is like, I don't know. There could have been some nuance there, but so anyway, it's just weird that Jack becomes this man of faith, but without, I don't know, maybe I'm not remembering some details at this point, but I just feel like it should have been connected to Locke, more.
Yeah.
And not just Jack running out of options and just throwing his hands up and going, well, I guess we're here for some reason because I can't figure it out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's like a larger
the Lighthouse. I mean, Lighthouse was a while ago, I guess, but remember Lighthouse when he's like, "What the fuck?" But I guess that was part of it.
That was part of it.
Convincing him that he's there for a reason.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and then there's the dynamite scene with Richard. I think they've been building to that, and and he's acting like, okay, we'll get off the island, like whatever. But then, like when it comes to the point, it's like, no, I'm not actually going to do that. I think it's a larger problem with the Locke arc. And I'm not sure that I can separate my dissatisfaction with the handling of the actual John Locke character from the fact that I don't like Terry O'Quinn as the Man in Black as much as I do some of the other actors who play that character. I preferred the Christian Man in Black. I preferred the Yemi Man in Black. I prefer the Titus Welliver Man in Black. It's weird. Like, I feel like they had a lot of people play that character, and strangely, like, once the ruse is over, because the ruse was interesting. I can live with that he took Locke's form because he had a specific reason to do it. But once they just make him stay that way, it just, I don't know, like, I just don't feel like, I don't like the energy that he brings to the like fully in public Man in Black character, not just pretending to be Locke, but he's like fully acknowledging like, yeah, I'm the smoke monster. I'm not really Locke, blah, blah, blah. It's strange. I don't know. And again, like I said, it might just be like displaced disappointment with what actually happens with the real Locke character. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with the performance, but I do kind of regret that that's how they handled Locke / Terry O'Quinn in season 6.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it could have been someone
Well,
else.
I don't have a problem with the performance. I think the problem for me is the lack of an interesting storyline for most of the time that he is Locke. As we talk about a lot, he sits around whittling. And I think if there was more, if there was something else he was doing, it might have worked better. But yeah, I kind of agree. I think some of the I don't know. Yeah, there's so many problems. There's just so many problems. I
It is
think
hard to separate the story too from the performance. So.
yeah, and just the whole idea of the bad guy not taking credit for things is just such a weird. I'm trying to think of like Darth Vader being like,
I never did that.
"No, Luke, I didn't chop your hand off." I mean, like, no, I didn't like try to attack the rebels. Who, me?
I
I love the rebels. Luke, I am maybe not your father.
I also did not kill your father. I had nothing to do with your father.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a better story?
It sounds weird when you say it that way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is bizarre. It is bizarre.
It makes me think of the idea of, knowing yourself, and this idea that Man in Black doesn't know who he is, in the context that he's not taking credit for some of the things that he does. And it's almost like one way you can reconcile that is this psychological idea that he doesn't know himself, or he doesn't know fully what he is, or what's attached to him. Because if you got a normal human brain, right, there's all these conscious thoughts, right, unconscious thoughts. There's conscious actions and processes that you're aware of your body's doing, and there's a lot of your behavior that's on the subconscious level, right? And so it's almost like that same framework, but his unconscious is a smoke monster, and he is really incapable as as just a individual conscious sort of being from really understanding what's below the surface, right? We can only really come up with theories about how our subconscious works, right? And some reasonable theories based on science and things we can observe and testing and things like that, right? But a lot of it is just sort of speculation, right? And sort of models of frameworks for behavior and things like that. And we kind of go, well, this is good enough explanation until it doesn't work, right? And it seems like that he's in that same boat, but he doesn't understand that the magnitude. Again, I've said this before on the podcast, but I almost wish like that shot at the end when Jacob kills Man in Black across the sea, right? And Jacob throws Man in Black into the light cave, and Man in Black's body comes out, and then the smoke monster flies away. Like, I really wish that could have been recorded for Man in Black to see and show him, you know what I mean? Like, and it's interesting. They had that episode in what was it? Season 5, I think, where we get or was it season 6? Yeah, no, maybe it was earlier this season where we get, for the first time, we get the smoke monster POV, and he's flying.
Yeah, that was this season. Yeah.
O-Town. Remember we used to call it O-Town?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Othersville or whatever, the barracks basically. And that they had that shot of him looking in a reflection in the mirror, in the glass.
Yeah.
And seeing, but so that's the kind of thing where it's like, how often has he seen himself as a smoke monster, right? Unless there's mirrors or clear bodies of water.
Yeah.
He's not seeing what he really is a lot of the times. And I feel like, so I don't know how to take, so when, a very mundane thing of, he's chasing Sun and she runs into a tree and she says, "You did this to me," and he's like, "I didn't do anything." I was like, is that just the writer trying to tell us he doesn't really understand what's attached to him or what he's really capable of or things like that? Or is he just lying and gaslighting, and it comes across genuine, like he's just like, I don't know, I didn't do that, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, so did he really fly across the water in smoke form and kill the Ajira passengers, and he just doesn't know that he did that? Like
Right.
when he goes to sleep, does the smoke monster take over and like does evil things and he wakes up and he's like, I didn't do anything. I was sleeping the whole time. You know, it's like
Mm.
those kind of weird questions, right? Because like this is gonna be dumb, but like what if what if Man in Black sleepwalks? Or should I say sleep smokes? And he just like does stuff when he's
Sleep
asleep.
wafts.
There it is. Sleep wafting. And he was wafting around sleep style and he's doing like crazy stuff and he has no idea.
Yeah. 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 That's interesting. Yeah, there's a fine line there. Another possibility that I think about when I hear that is that, like he's just right. Like he didn't actually do anything. The thing
Mhm,
that happened to Sun is, just some fluke thing from hitting her head on a tree, like you
mhm.
really don't know. There's no definitive proof about that. And you could say the same thing about some of the other stuff. Maybe not all of it, but like some of it, the claiming and all that, like you could say,
Mhm.
like, yeah, that's just like some weird interpretation that people have about like the way he gets people to do things he wants them to do. But like it doesn't really correspond to
Yeah.
any like supernatural power. We talked about that
Mhm,
too. I
mhm.
think I think the flip side of that coin, I wouldn't have minded either, which is like he does have the powers, but he doesn't know it. And I think like that could have been like they could have played that up, and it could have been an interesting note. I mean, maybe they didn't want to make his character tragic or something, but just the idea that I don't know, there's something compelling there about like you you have this evil attached to you and you don't know it.
Mhm.
I think that could have worked, the way they play it on the show, I'm not sure if that's what we're supposed to believe or not.
Well, I
you
guess it
know?
I assume I assume we're not supposed to believe it because it didn't become a part of the plot proper and any of the climax of no, Locke, you can't leave because you've got evil attached to you. And he goes,
Right.
what? Like that could have been a thing where he is conflicted about if he should leave the island now that he knows that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like Saeed tells him, oh, Dogan said you were evil incarnate or something, and like he just kind of shrugs it off. And there's a whole thing with Richard, and like, like, oh,
Mhm.
he's the devil, and he says all this stuff about Jacob, but it's clear that like he knows that's the way Jacob talks about him, which he
Mhm.
does in that episode. Jacob's like, yeah, he's the evil that the island is keeping in, or whatever. Um, it does seem to me like he's aware that people talk about him that way at the very least.
Yeah, and there's that connection between Man in Black and the idea of a smoke monster going back, because you're talking about he's the devil, right? So it goes back to that Garden of Eden idea
Yeah.
of like, a smoke monster is very serpentine, right? So this idea of like, well, yeah, the snake that convinced Eve to eat the apple probably would say it didn't do anything either. Like, I didn't tell her to eat that apple. What are you talking about? Who, me, little old snake? Come on. You know, um, so I feel like there's a connection there with just like the mischievous,
I'm just gonna say it. I'm
entity.
not Team Snake. I think Snake did nothing wrong.
Well, without Snake, we wouldn't be here. So
Yeah, I mean, and like Snake didn't lie. Everything Snake said was true.
why
It's just
put the why tempt humanity with all knowledge or whatever anyway?
yeah, yeah. You put that there in the first place, and it's like, yeah,
Mhm,
you just don't want people to know things. Like, okay, like I think Snake's been unfairly vilified.
mhm. Well, the
Side
other thing is like it'd be
note.
different if God said, "Hey, you can eat that apple later. There'll be a time at which you can eat it, but the
Yeah,
time is not now." And then it becomes more about like technology moving too fast, or
right.
you getting knowledge. When you're not ready for it, can lead to catastrophe or something. Uh,
No, you
but
must
since there
never
wasn't,
eat that.
never's a long time,
Never is ever. Yeah.
especially in the Garden of Eden where there was no clocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a clock-free garden. It's true.
Yeah, time is longer when there's no clocks. We know
Yeah,
that from Einstein.
Is that what Einstein
All
said?
right, you want to get into the episode?
I do. I want to say
think,
one more thing before we do it.
Okay.
It's a short thing. Because you've harped on this many times, but I also heard you say this in the season 6 review episode, which is that you really wanted Christian at the end to say to Jack, "You had what it takes."
Yeah,
And
always.
it was
Always
just
love that.
it was a little bit sad to hear you say that before we get the, because we are talking about Christian coming back and like, oh, they need to do that. And you're like, yeah, but the thing they really need to do is have Christian tell Jack you have what it takes, And
Mhm.
I'm just like, oh no, like I can feel the disappointment coming,
Yeah.
It's very sad that they got like literally the scene
Mhm.
where they easily could have done it and they
Yep.
just don't.
They just didn't. They ran up to it and they just didn't do it. And it's almost like that kind of tension is intentional tension, intentional,
Ooh, intentional. Yeah, it's hard to.
intentional.
Yeah, if you wrote it, you could see it.
You could see it if you wrote it. That's how writing works and vision works. But yeah, I agree. It's one, if I had a top 10 list of my disappointments with the show, because that's one of those things, the cyclical nature of stories is very powerful, obviously. And that closing that loop on that idea on Jack's, his main flaw, his main feeling of being inadequate, coming back to Christian, who becomes the sort of father of the show, good father in the real Christian way, and Flash Sideways Christian, and then bad father in the Man in Black is impersonating Christian way. And yeah, it's just sad that we don't really get that line, and we get right up to it. And it even could have been a different thing where he, you know, Jack could have started it with, yeah, too bad I didn't have what it takes, or I wish I could have saved more people. I didn't have what just like Christian could have reversed it, right? So he could have said, in option A is you had what it takes, right? But option B is like, I've always known you had what it takes, Jack.
Mhm.
I just needed you to know that. It's one of those lines, right? I just
Right,
needed you to believe it. I always believed it. So I said you didn't, so you prove it to yourself.
right.
Right. But I never doubted you for a minute, kind of thing. Yeah, I wish there was more than that. Yeah, I saw a story a couple weeks ago about, one of those periodic stories about a lost reboot. And it got me thinking about what would a lost reboot look like. And so I was jotting down some ideas on, like, first of all, I'm like, we should be writing the reboot. Who better, right? No one spent more time thinking about
Yeah.
this show than us and the listeners. And I was thinking about what another version of the show would look like, because I always thought it should be on the same island, but like a different time period or something. And then I started thinking about another island where there's very similar um, circumstances, but it would be a different origin story. So Across the Sea would be different. It'd be a different island. So one idea would be, we would see the same island, but in different time period, within the same world of the Lost TV show, the same island, but we'd see it a different time period. So maybe we would see the island. So, there's that theory that the reason Yimi's brother's plane winds up on the island, even though it left from like Africa,
Mhm.
right? That the island was in the Atlantic or in that area, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
so you could do so part of the TV show could be, it could take place in like that 80s time period or something, right? Or another time period where that the show didn't depict really, or didn't really, investigate a lot. But like when the island was other places. So who came to the island when it was in the Atlantic, right? Uh,
Mhm.
things like that, and so there's like that one idea. And there's the idea that there was other islands, right? Because there's other pockets of energy out there,
Right.
and so maybe you could have other characters who were drawn to that island for other reasons. and other types of things, you know. But yeah, if I was gonna rewrite Lost, it would be way more about a real goal, you know. It would be really, I would have a hard time not tying up loose ends and you know, making the incident be about something concrete and not just be like, well, something happened, I don't know, they needed this and something that and Swan this and electromagnetism that and Jughead this and time travel that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it is hard. It is hard to because I do like certain aspects of the way Lost is written that sort of go along with that, but that's like the downside of it is that you get these really unsatisfying story points. And so it's like, yeah, trying to like balance what's good about the show with like trying to like fix the things that kind of ruin it sometimes. Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. I definitely think like it's hard for me to. They could definitely just reboot it in a way where, um, you know, you just start with new characters. I mean, that's kind of what you were saying. I think with the idea of like the island is floating in other places, and we'll just like it'll be a different time period, and so we can just like you know, like do a soft reboot, I guess you could call it. But like I think for me, like I really want, you know, I want like the perfect version of the Lost I know. So I want the Lost characters, I just want them to have like, you know, satisfying arcs, and I want things to just be a little bit more. I want things to make just a little bit more sense, but not too much where it ruins it. Yeah, I uh uh I think there's some stuff they could just cut that just like didn't work and never really did anything for the show, and some things that just need to be like elaborated a bit more, because they're just like way too vague about certain things. And yeah, I think the incident is definitely one of those things that is crying out for. I really resent that they use the incident as a misdirection about the Flash sideways, because it's like a double fake out. It's like there's A, the fact that the incident is not the explanation for the Flash sideways, but there's also B, so then what was the point of the incident again? Like it almost ruins both.
Yep.
You know, which like I don't like that move. I in retrospect, like that's one of the most annoying things to me about the later stages of the show. You know, setting aside like some of the mysteries they don't explain properly, but just the story mechanics of that, it just feels very, you know, like I can way more easily live with like Locke's come back to life. Oh no, it isn't Locke. Like that is disappointing, but I think that works well enough for me, in a way that it doesn't necessarily invalidate the two stories that it's building on. Whereas like, yeah, it really seems like it's just like, okay, so the Flash Highways is like a totally separate thing, and like the incident didn't really do much of anything. Okay.
I feel like it's worse than that. I feel like it's worse in the sense that I don't know what the incident was or did. I don't even know if it did much of anything. You know, I don't even know if that's true. I just don't know what happened.
Right.
Like, what happened?
Yeah, they just kind of like flash out of having to deal with it.
Yeah.
There was that deleted scene where they showed Richard like seeing the explosion from far away, because like it was like paying off that line where he's like, "I watched them all die."
Oh, that's right.
So I do feel like they had a slight plan for like showing it a little more like elaborately, like what happened. But they went with we won't see anything.
But then you know they have to, because right, I just feel like unless they explain this out on a granular level that they never do, right? As soon as the incident happens, then the pocket of electromagnetism is destabilized or whatever.
Yeah.
You have 108 minutes, buddy. So you better build that swan station quick.
Yeah, I know. We talked about that. I'm like, how could that have been possible?
Yeah, unless it was like
they must have had like a manual version or something. That
well, I was gonna say unless it took a while before it destabilized.
Or that.
Yeah, it was like, well, okay, we'll continue to build the Swan Station anyway because we still want to investigate this pocket, and then maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's still true that they hit the pocket when they were building the station, and so the incident isn't when Jughead exploded. The incident is still when they built this, when they kept, after it exploded, and then they continued construction on the site, and then they busted the bubble or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
We just summed up 15 years of podcasting with those two sentences. All right. Well, I think we should jump into the episode because it's going to answer all of our questions.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's
be confident.
Let's do that then.
All right. Let's do it.
All right.
All right, everybody. Get your players ready if you're going to stream with us on streaming the Streamtastic, the candidate.
Let's stream.
Let's
together.
5, 4, 3, 2 stream. You ready to stream? Okay, here we go.
Go stream time. Yeah, let's do it.
Go gadget streaming. 5, 4, 3, 2 stream. Previously on stream.
Mr. Locke.
Huh? Me? What? Locke?
Who's that?
Mr. Locke, can you hear me?
I don't know. Did you mess up my ears?
I had 4 ears before. How many do I have now?
We were on the same flight back to Sydney. I met you when the baggage came off.
Oh, that's right.
Lost your knife.
I gave you my business card.
Right.
What happened? You were run down by a car. You just came out of surgery.
So Desmond hit him with the car.
Right. I had to.
It's a little French.
Kind
of Cajun.
Another Duralsac. Oh boy.
While I was operating, I got a look at the initial injury to your spine, the one that put you in a wheelchair. And
it looks like your father did it.
How that happened. Because I think you're a candidate.
To lead the island?
Candidate for what? A new procedure. Surgery we're developing, and if it works, it could restore feeling to your leg.
We remove daddy issues.
You may even walk it. You'll give me a shot. I think that I could fix you.
Does no one call him Mr. Locke except for Walt and Jack right now? I feel like nobody calls him Mr. Locke.
It's very rare. Yeah. It's like a formal thing. But I feel like, yeah, even in his flashbacks, no one really says that.
So this is where we go, like, we don't understand why in this reality people still have limitations on their character and their, their flaws, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's saying no to this miraculous possibility. And we're like, why?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, but that's the thing. Like, they have to be ready to move on or something.
But why aren't they doing that already? It's weird. It seems like, how are you practicing being ready if this isn't when you're practicing being ready? Or how do you get to be ready if you're not practicing being ready now? Then how are you going to be ready?
He's just got to think about it for like a couple of days, and then he'll be ready.
All right.
I forgot that like they don't go full surgery immediately. It's like just a partial thing, and then he has to, which I think is better. Like he should have to like volunteer, not just like be forced into it.
Yeah.
Got the gun. So you not anymore, doughboy.
Wow.
Yeah. This is season 6, bitch.
Oh man, that was sad.
I have a list of names. Ford, you're on it. Azarias, the quads.
Well, only one quad.
She's not.
Why isn't she on it?
Or dies.
It's well, actually, they'll explain it. She was crossed off.
Oh, that's right. They crossed you off, girl.
Girl, you got crossed off.
Oh, Seamus.
Seamus.
Seamus on you.
Wow, Seamus. I didn't think you were like a Pickett type.
Mm-hmm. This is how Pickett became Pickett. He started out as a Seamus. Every Pickett begins as a Seamus.
Been slide yet? Say in about an hour. We haven't got an hour. Tell them to work faster.
Wait, why is the fence not live?
What does work mean? Are they
Something
plugging in
go
more
on?
battery or something? We need
It
more
was
AA
working
batteries.
before. What happened? Oh, is it that? Is it the Desmond stuff? Did that like destroy the fence because they used all the electricity or something? Is that what happened? I'm confused.
I mean, it sounds like something.
Because it was working fine before.
Was it?
Yeah, because like it was on, and like Locke came and he was like, "Look, I see you brought a fence."
But
like,
he didn't. We didn't test it.
Well, he didn't test it, but I assumed it was on.
You know what they say about assumptions.
Why wouldn't it be
Sonic
on?
fences.
This is Bernard. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right here. And if you're not a patient, you can call me Bernard. Jack Shepard.
I need dental work.
I'm a surgeon.
Exactly. I got a toothache.
I was hoping to get a look at one of your patient files.
And which patient would that be?
His name's John Locke, and our record said that you had done some emergency oral surgery on him about 3 years back.
And what are you looking for exactly?
I want to know how he was hurt.
Do you mind if I ask you why you're so interested in Mr. Locke?
Yes, I
we
mind.
met about a week ago. We were on the same flight back from Australia.
Oceanic 815.
Uh-oh.
Oops.
Dentist says what?
Memory serves, you were flirting with my wife Rose when I was in the bathroom.
That's how he took it. I love
Mhm.
that. Yeah, I'm not into dentist wives normally.
Now, I can't break patient confidentiality and tell you something I shouldn't. But I can tell you that when I treated Mr. Locke, there was another man.
Well, it's weird. This is weird. This is weird.
Remember that?
They skipped over something very important,
What's that?
which is
Anthony Cooper.
Good luck, Doc.
why did their coincidental being on the plane convince him that so Jack, he said, why are you interested in Locke? And Locke's like, well, I met him on a plane. He goes, say no more. I saw you on a plane, therefore I'm going to help you. It's like, wait. But why do you wait? You know, he's giving that some meaning.
Yeah.
And saying Jack has the same legitimate meaning. And it's like, but they didn't identify what that meaning was.
Yeah.
Why did he bring me here?
Because your friends got themselves captured. Now, we're going to have to rescue them.
Rescue him from what?
Creedmoor has them in the cage about a half mile inland.
Why would he?
You know, I would ask him, except I don't think he's going to give me a straight answer. But I can't imagine that his intentions are good. If we move right now, you can break your people out, run for the plane, and be off this island.
Run for the plane.
They're not my people. And I'm not leaving the island.
Well, Jack, I'm hoping you still change your mind about that. But your friends do want to leave. And since they just ran away from me on my own boat, I'm going to need your help convincing them that they can trust me.
Why should I trust you?
Because I could kill you, Jack, right here, right now.
Can you though?
And I could kill every single one of your friends. And and there's not a thing that you could do to stop me.
Isn't there?
But instead of killing you, I saved your life, and now I want to save them too.
I feel like this is the Dynamite scene again. Jack should say, "Then kill me." Then, if you could,
Yeah.
so kill me, then do it.
Yeah. It's a weird rationale. You should trust me because I could kill you, and I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well, that just means you need me for something, and you're
Yeah,
going to use me instead of kill me.
yeah, it's not obvious that that's. I have
That's
things.
like saying like why should I'll say it later. I don't want to talk over this scene. Right back where we all started.
It's so hard not to like talk and miss things.
Yeah.
All the names written. Your name was there too. But it was crossed out.
But maybe it was a good reason. Maybe that's great. Maybe it's a list of people who he's going to use. That's what's weird, right? Is they're really imbuing these concepts with a lot of like ambiguous meaning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And like it matters a lot less than they think. Like Jacob is like, yeah, I crossed your name out because you became a mother, but if you want the job, you can have it.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
He doesn't put any special meaning on it. They put the meaning on it.
Yeah. So this was the ring he gave to Locke to tell Sun that to come back to prove he was dead. That's right. That's the rub.
It's like, no, tell her I'm dead and use this ring and tell her never to come back here. And then Ben gets the ring from Locke and says, Jen's alive. Check it out. I got
Here's the proof. Yeah.
Yeah. Classic Ben moment.
Okay, here we go.
I really got to get to the bottom of what went wrong here. Because I was thinking about this. I remember this scene and I'm like, why did the fence not work? Oh no, don't shoot at the smug monster.
It looks like it wasn't even on.
Yeah, I don't think it was on. They needed too long to turn it on, but I'm just confused because I did it never work or did it work and then stop working?
I think it's gonna work later.
Hurry, when that thing's done with them, he's coming for us. Well, I ain't waiting.
Classic Jack.
Oh wow.
I'm with him. He said it. Right. Oh no. Oh man, that's the worst moment of Lost ever. I'm with him.
Monster. Yikes.
Wow. So that means Jack is claimed. I mean,
that is what they were insinuating, and yet, yeah, it's not clear. I think this plan is weird, especially because like the plane needs some repair. Like they're acting like they can just like jump in and take off.
I guess they don't know that.
Yeah,
maybe.
Whoa there.
Oh, that's why it didn't work.
He turned off the generator. Okay. That helps. I forgot that detail.
Well, this is the first time this whole group has been together, like forever, right?
Yeah, you're totally right. It's been, season 4, I think, was the last time that happened. Oh, okay. This is when they get to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did rewrite this part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
doesn't he want it?
This is
How
where,
can
yeah,
anyone
Jack can't
not
let it
want
go
the thing that I want.
because his dural sac needs repair.
It is like, Jack, I feel like you need the surgery more for you than the patient needs it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a
Well,
lot.
he needs to understand.
Just like, has anyone ever said no to a surgery before? Like,
But that's the thing, is he needs to know the reason.
yeah.
Happy now, Jack? Are you happy? This is what you did. Sebastian seems like it's Jack's fault.
It does. It does.
So, what's the story?
I think they're gonna tell us here.
Okay. Yes.
I vaguely remember what the story was, but I don't want to spoil the narrative development. Okay, it's not gonna happen yet.
I don't have to stop. I'm bulletproof.
Oh boy, yeah.
I just think this makes no sense. And I guess the idea is he's just got this non-corporeal quality to him where he's like a hologram, you know,
Yeah.
and a bullet can go through him. You know, because it's not like he's getting hit and there's a wound. And
It's a little inconsistent because Saeed was able to stab him and you saw the hole in the shirt and stuff. So it's not really clear. Like, I feel like there should be bullet
Is this
wounds.
the same shirt? Did the hole get repaired?
Yeah. Well, maybe when he smokes and like de-smokes, like he can repair his own clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Nature's sewing machine.
So this is weird. This will go down in history as I still don't understand. Someone rigged the plane.
Yeah. This is some weird shit. I think it's like, we talked about this so much. I think it's like Widmore rigged the plane because he wanted to make sure that the Man in Black didn't use it to leave.
But like, he could have just exploded it now, and then then it's done, right?
Yeah, but I guess like because he killed the guards, like he doesn't.
Oh, that was right. They were in the middle of doing it when he showed up or something.
Yeah,
like maybe they would have exploded
like
it.
Yeah. And so he's gonna take Widmore's bomb and literally, like, however much time passed just now, like this is when he like rigs the bomb.
That's what's weird, is he formulates a completely new plan.
Yeah.
In like 30 seconds, when like, well, what was your original plan? Because you didn't want them to actually leave with you.
Right. Yeah, we'll never know what his original plan was because it couldn't.
It's almost like he was gonna plant a bomb and they beat him to it.
Charles had really wanted to keep him from actually getting on board. He wouldn't have moved these little fences. Well, wait, now he wants us to leave the island? No, Hugo, he wants to get us all in the same place at the same time.
That's what you want.
Oh, this is that con thing where it's like, I'll tell you the thing that I'm planning to do so you don't suspect that I'm trying to do it. Oh, he's even gonna show him the fucking thing. Okay.
4 bricks of C4.
This is a great way to con someone because you have all the evidence, but all you have to do is say it's the other person who did it.
Right.
It's very, what's the word? Political.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird because, like, I think it's partially true. He's just hiding the fact that he's gonna do the same thing now. With the same explosive, no less.
But but Widmore doesn't want to kill all of them.
No, yeah, I think it was just for the Man in Black. He didn't want him to leave.
Twice you saved our asses. Guess I was wrong about you.
Thank you. That submarine is going to be heavily defended. We're going to need everyone.
It is weird though that they don't think about what happens after they leave the island. They don't know this creature, and they don't know what he might need them for. And all the extent of his plan that he's communicated to them is, we'll leave the island together. But
Yeah.
there's no and then what, you'll eat us? Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I need to sustain on human souls. So I'm gonna bring my lunch. I'm gonna pack a brown bag lunch of Losties with me as I leave the island, you know? Like, okay,
Yeah.
that's still
Oh,
love.
this little plan.
How am I supposed to do that? You saw what it did back there.
We'll see if you get it wet.
Yeah. I'll take care of the rest. What's that gonna be?
Mm-hmm. That line comes across to me as tying back to an undeveloped idea that water's his weakness or something,
Mm-hmm.
and that he intuited that when Man in Black said he couldn't
fly over the water.
fly over the water.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. But it's so flimsy. Like,
Yeah,
it's I just feel like
it's like a chair with 3 legs.
yeah, I would think Sawyer would have a better idea of like what he's trying to accomplish before like diving into a plan like that.
Pun intended.
It's just like he pushes him into literally pushes him into the water, and like, now what? He's like, okay, I'm wet now. Like,
plan succeeded.
Yeah, like, did that help? Did that stop me somehow? I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's very, very strange.
I
There's
love,
that,
like, hey, you want this candy bar I bought for myself? No, you don't? Okay, great, because I wanted it for me.
The lawyer gave me this. She said to be more accepted from my father, especially when you know why or what it's supposed to mean.
I have no idea. But then I didn't know about you.
My father,
He was found in an alley outside a bar in Sydney. He drank himself to death.
Or did he?
Bring the body back. And, airline lost it.
I just flew into the city a few days ago.
When?
Last Wednesday.
Oceanic flight.
yeah, so I think there's like some half intuitive, half like true realization thing that happens when they realize they're connected to this flight. And I'm not sure I can fully verbalize that, but I feel like whatever that weird thing is the thing Bernard was acting on.
It becomes an intuition and an instinct, and they just trust it.
Yeah, like it tells them something subconsciously, like, oh, this person I have some weird connection to, I should trust him. Like, but it is hard to define because they don't really say exactly what it's supposed to be.
Is it because they made this place together?
Maybe it is. That's actually a valid point.
I'd probably trust someone who helped me create a whole reality.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have
Not
to
necessarily
make a reality with people and find out before I commit to it. Now, I wish when we came back here, that idea of family was applicable to the people we're watching in this scene, because they have felt they're so far from feeling family right now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they've been apart for years. Like, a lot of these people are just seeing each other.
A lot of them don't trust the other people.
Yeah.
Saeed's not even human anymore, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, Claire's pretty far gone. Like, it's
that's not even Locke. I mean,
yeah. I agree. I feel like that's the point they want to make, but that is something that, kind of
that's what you don't get, right? This whole spectacular, warm feeling that they create an entire reality together. But like, they're so in their last moments here on the island, they're so fractured.
Yeah.
From purpose and from each other. And then even in the Flash Sideways, they don't know. They start out not knowing each other. So it's just a weird.
Yeah.
It's the Avengers, you know what I mean? It's not where when they team up at the end, they're the most unified they've ever been. It's like it's like the opposite of that.
Yeah, yeah. There's a bit more teaming up towards the end, but yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem adequate. I do feel like they're building more on the vibe they had in season 1 than they are on the way it is now. You know, I think there was more unity in those early days, and from watching season 1, I really do feel like with the Flash Sideways, like it does feel like that's what they're building off of more than they are the season 6 stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is a bit jarring because they're very different. Oh, I forgot. I was wondering how they piloted the submarine. I guess they just have people.
I think
there.
I feel like we talked about that on the podcast, and I was like, yeah, they'll just force the pilot to do it.
Yeah,
By the captain.
Yeah. I don't know why I thought they were gonna have to just learn how to do it.
Okay, get the manual out. It's 1,000 pages just to turn on the lights.
Whoever told you you needed to stay had no idea what they were talking about.
I told me.
John Locke told me I needed.
Oh. I love that. See, that's the moment.
Yeah.
That's what I want in the. Oh no! Damn.
Wait, who's shooting? Oh, was that Whitmore's people?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't expect shooting to start. I forgot about
I forgot. Like Jack doesn't know how to take cover. Annie Oakley over here.
Yeah, the water.
It's weird because Man in Black should remember that John Locke told him to stay.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're totally right. Wow. That seems like a bit of a hole in that exchange.
What?
That just seems like a problem there. Like, because he does very explicitly have all of Locke's memories. So I don't know. Maybe we're just supposed to think he wasn't thinking about that at the time, or he was assuming it was someone else,
or that Jack wasn't basing that on what Locke said.
Yeah, like it was Jacob or some other whatever person. So like pushing him in the water like made it seem like
he left Claire.
It's so weird. It's so weird because he doesn't actually want to get on the sub. So it's like Sawyer's whole plan of pushing him in the water, like it seems like it maybe slowed him down, but like I don't know, what would he have done if that hadn't happened?
Well, what's interesting is what would Man in Black would he have gotten on the boat? And he goes, wait a minute, before we push off, I left my oven on. You guys go ahead without me, I'll catch up. But okay, but that's the thing. So it's not as simple as he has the bomb because he can't kill them outright. So he has to make it where they have to blow up themselves some weird way.
They trigger it themselves. Even though like I feel like they also shouldn't be able to kill themselves. So it's just like, I don't know, they have to like accidentally trigger something that will kill them. It's really a bit much. Especially for something he rigged in like 5 minutes. But I have forgotten exactly how this thing works.
Oh, is it like they think they have to disarm it, but disarming it makes it blow up?
I think you're right.
Yeah, there's no way they could really intuit that the reverse psychology of he wants us to kill ourselves. He can't kill us. So it'd be hard to factor that into your thinking of what to do here.
idea how that thing works. Can we turn it off? This watches Drury into production. Battery deviates the explosives. How much time till we're off, Mike?
At least 5 minutes.
It's extra, 2 extra minutes.
These wires, they're leads from the lock. Should we disconnect them from the battery? Check the speaker. The bomb should be in that. Yes, but we need to pull them out simultaneously. I'm not sure.
Oh no.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, they do get to this.
That's the deal.
Oh, they do get to this. Okay. Damn, Jack.
Everything that he has done has been to get us here. He wanted to get us all in the same place at the same time, a nice enclosed space where we had no hope of getting out of. I don't understand. Locke said that he can't leave the island without us. They said he can't leave his own unless we're all dead. He told me that he could kill any one of us whenever he wants. Well, what if he hasn't because he's not allowed to? He's trying to waste
I, yeah, I don't know how much I think.
Why not just throw it in the gun? Don't care. Nothing is gonna happen. It's not your decision to make. He can't kill us. I'm not gonna stand here for nothing.
It's weird. Like Sawyer is Jack now.
Yeah,
This is
totally.
what Jack would have been in season 1. I gotta do something.
Yeah. And Jack's doing the lock thing.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
But yeah, that's the idea, is like they have to think that they're disabling the bomb.
Yeah.
So they're not trying to kill themselves, but that will actually be the only thing that makes it go off.
Damn, Saeed.
Yeah, that was our final moment.
Mm-hmm. The weird thing though is I mean, I'm not sure I'm how convinced I am that Jack could really have gotten to that train of thought so quickly, but some of those ideas I think make sense for him to think, but it was very well thought out. It's a little awkward. But considering Desmond's still around and Claire's still around, it's still not like, his complete plan in one fell swoop.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't.
Interestingly, he's okay with Claire not getting on, even though he let Saeed get on without argument. It's a lot of names going on here.
Yeah, what do you think happened, Hurley? Oh, this is dumb.
Yeah, this is the thing that they can't solve.
Like, what is in that cabinet?
Oh, right. It's not even enough.
It wasn't even that. She got
There's
wrapped
like
up in
like metal.
Oh, that's right. So now they don't even have him to help. Yeah, where's Jacob when you need him?
Just go.
Mm-mm-mm. Nothing to talk about here.
Yeah, I mean, action
Swimming.
sequence.
Yeah, I still hate how their story ends.
It's very disappointing.
I guess because it wasn't for anything. It was,
I really think when they're alone, they shouldn't be speaking English anymore. I find this very awkward.
Well, she forgot how to speak Korean.
No, I only have one language now.
One at a time.
But yeah, I feel like this whole
This is like because it's like the Juliet thing, right? It's like
yeah,
it's Juliet,
exactly
but like in
that.
water,
Yeah. And like Jin sacrificed himself instead of
and I guess I just wish it was for some reason, for like more than just about them, I guess, or something, or even here, like if Jin had said something like, not that there's time for a lot of dialogue, but if he, like just some intimation of like there's something in this island I found, well, I'll see you again or something, just like if there was something extra to what's happening here about the bigger scope of the story, you know them finding each other after all this time of searching meant more than just that they got to say goodbye in that one moment here. I wish it was something like that.
Yeah, there's really no culmination, and it's just a very arbitrary thing that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do think their moment is more, I don't know, dramatically satisfying than Saeed's is, but that's not saying much.
And then that was weird, seeing them leave each other again,
separate in the water. Yeah,
I guess it's like so they can be reunited in the Flash Sideways.
Yeah, which is something we don't really know at this point.
Hey, you just died.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the other weird thing about it. It almost undercuts that in a way.
Yep, it does, because you're like, well, here's Jin here, he's fine.
Yeah. And I remember thinking that at the time, but because we didn't know what the relationship was, it didn't quite work the way it does when you actually know the answer. And it's like, oh, they were just reunited. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ji Yeon was like, what the fuck? But, oh, he's going to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
This is such a game they love doing with Flash Sideways. Like, one line, ooh, feels like it has resonance with the story we know. No, it's a totally different thing.
Yep.
It's like, I think you're a candidate for a surgery. I was in a plane crash. I had a pilot's license.
Well, it could have been 815 because That's
yeah,
like,
clearly.
yeah.
But it's like, you know, does he have a memory? You know, it's like it feels like it's gonna be relevant, but it's just like, no.
This is almost like Locke blames himself for being in the wheelchair in the regular reality, and so in the Flash Sideways, he also constructs a way to feel guilty about his situation.
Yeah, yeah. He got rid of all the manipulation and all this like really horrible stuff that happened with his dad, but yeah, he is still to blame. It's like even when his dad's not like a horrible person, he's still like blaming himself for what happened.
Whatever happened.
Let it go. Let it go. Yeah, yeah. That's a clue. That's a clue. Like accepting the surgery is like symbolic of Locke proving that he's ready to move on.
Yeah, yeah.
I was hoping that maybe you could go first.
Wait, what's Jack gonna let go?
Yeah, it's weird. The way he's talking, it's almost like he knows what's going on, but he really doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Not yet, at least.
Can't help you, John.
I wish you believed me.
There it is.
Yeah. I see what they're trying to do here.
What are they trying to do here?
They're trying to like call back to this thing, you know, that's what Locke said in his suicide note, even though he didn't actually kill himself in the end. And in Flash Sideways, they're like flipping it and having Jack say it to Locke in a context where he can actually listen. You know, it's like they both get some kind of redemption by flipping the script and getting like the chance to respond, you know, before the other one's dead. Like I get that. I like in theory I like that idea. I just I don't know.
It's not really symmetrical in terms of what they're talking about, but thematically it still resonates.
Exactly.
They're sea people now. Is that a water from his eye or a tear? Okay.
Fine line here.
Sawyer's like, I'm just gonna pretend to be asleep still, so I don't have to acknowledge the emotional
deal with this
here. Yeah, Jacob's a bitch. He did all this.
I wanted you to have the choice.
You were broken before you came here, and so I broke you further.
I had to break you some more.
Yeah, you weren't broken enough. I'm really just a sadist. I'm Roman.
Submarine? They all want it. Everyone.
I did say you didn't want to be on the sub.
Not all of it.
It's so weird that he knows.
That's just weird.
I remember thinking that at the time. Like,
Finish what I started.
it makes it seem like it's true that he can't leave until they're all dead. Like he can feel the barrier that their existence provides or something.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I wish that was true. It just is true in that moment.
Yeah. It doesn't quite work overall. But yeah, I just find that odd. And I think on the larger level, like the thing that's like the strangest to me is that like we don't even know what the original plan was, because it couldn't have been that. Actually, we talked about that some in the season 6 review podcast where we were reviewing Dr. Linus. Like, I forgot about this, but when he goes to recruit Ben, he's like, I'm gathering a group over on the Hydra Island. you know. And we talked about it, and we're like, it's weird because like he never did that. And we're like, is he lying? Like, is he, you know what I mean? Does he want Ben to like go be captured and killed by Widmore? Is he leading him to a trap? You know, like what, you know what I mean? Like, what was that? Or did he actually plan to go to the Hydra Island and he was surprised that Widmore showed up? But then like he sends Sawyer over there to do recon supposedly for the Ajira passengers, but then Sawyer's like, you didn't send me over there for those Ajira passengers, did you? And he's like, no. And so then it's like, oh, he does know about Widmore. Anyway, I just got really confused about like what the plan was supposed to be and what is just improvising. Why?
Oh, were you explaining why?
I think so.
Okay, well then I got it. Yeah, I think that's an interesting. I'm gonna chalk that up to a Lindelof thing. I feel like there's this weird thing about plans. It's almost like that primer thing where, or you know, sometimes you get this in sort of in some like time travel stories where the sort of main timeline that you sort of start the story with, you realize wasn't ever really the original timeline. You know, it was already altered by things you'll see later that it ended up in the past. You know, so it's almost like the concept of the original plan it is like in a closed loop somewhere that's not really active in what actually happened because of how the story plays out, you know. So it's like he sort of had an original plan, but you know, it's it was so never put into effect that like it doesn't even count.
There's not even a hint of what it might have been.
Yeah, and it seems like, and it would have been interesting if it was more, you know, I feel like the plan had, you know, 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7 turnabouts right in it, and it would have been interesting if we had gotten what he wanted the final goal to be. And so that even though it's twisting and turning directions as it progresses towards that final thing, you know, at least we're tracking what he wants to happen. I mean, we get that to the extent we know he wants to kill them, but in terms of like logistics, right? It would have been interesting to see if he, because so basically I'm saying like if several episodes ago or whatever he said you know, as he twirls his mustache, I'm gonna get all of them on a plane and let them fly off, and there's a bomb that's going to go off in 3 minutes. Basically the submarine plan,
but on the plane.
On the plane,
yeah, which he knew about.
Yeah, and that's why he was gathering them on that island and all these, right? It would have kind of tied some of these your points together, but it would have been interesting to see if like they could still do the switching of the plan and the new, you know, different things happening and new plot points creating new possibilities and, you know, whatever. But then we get to the end and he's still trying to make that plan happen, and then he, you know, does something different. But it's the whole, it's the same. There's this palpable quality to the storytelling on the show that you see in all of the major plot points where everything has that quality to it. I mean, like the cabin, the Swan Station, the Dogen and the machine, the light, you know, the evil detecting machine, like the temple water, you know, fountain thing, like everything has that patina of like, wow, wonder what the original version was like, you know.
Right. But it's written in such a way where like they're not really interested in the original
it's version. Like the original version never existed in this reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird, it's like, you know, again, the time travel idea of like if you go back in time and kill your grandfather, well, now you live in a time line where your grandfather's dead and different things are happening, and you know, but you know, but you come from a time where he was alive, and you know what I mean. So it's like this weird cutoff of like how, yeah, I don't know, and then everyone's just all over the place at this point. It's, you know, people's motivations I feel like really break down this part of the season, you know, why they came back and how that relates to what they're doing now. and then what they kind of want in the future. Like Jack's like, I'm staying here, and it's still like, but why? They want to leave, and it's like, but why?
Right,
Because
but he
I
gets
mean,
on the sub anyway, and so it's like they want to insist on that thing because they want to like get this
mhm,
point across because
mhm.
it's a little bit, it jars a little bit to have him like try to leave the island at the same time as he's like fulfilling his destiny
Well,
by
and
staying there.
it's also weird that he's not so much of a lock at this point that he's trying to convince other people to stay, right? Because that
Right,
would be the ultimate version
true.
where he is aligned with that idea that they're there for a reason so much that he can
Like he would want to blow up the sub to stop them from leaving. Like that'd be the
hmm
wild thing. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, you've never been more right. Yeah, that would be the lock thing. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me though. I'm glad you mentioned that. That reminds me because I'm sure we talked about it at the time of this original airing of this episode of the idea of Locke next to a submarine and being wet because there was that weird
Oh no.
memory. Remember, there's that weird
Ah,
thing in
yeah.
season 3 when he goes to blow up the sub, and
He's
we
wet
see
for no
him.
reason.
Yeah, we see him, and he like plants a bomb, but we don't see how why, when he got in the water or why he would have gotten in the water.
Yeah,
We
yeah. We see
just
him go inside, I think. And so
yeah,
like, I always assumed he planted the bomb inside the
yeah,
cell, which wouldn't require getting wet. So
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's a weird. Did they intend for that? Is that a weird coincidence? Like, I don't know what to make of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, maybe it's one of those things like, on the show we've seen like people's consciousness time travel.
Mm-hmm.
And water is a lot like consciousness. And maybe it time traveled. So when Locke
Or
was
is
wet in
consciousness
season
like water,
3,
or is it the same thing?
what was that?
Or is consciousness like water, or is it the same thing?
Well, what would Bruce Lee say? I feel like we're verging into something pithy he said about that. But yeah, maybe that's what happened. Maybe yeah, in season 3 when Locke was wet, it was a temporal water from the future.
That's like
Temporal,
that would
temporal
be
wetness.
so cool, like in a way. I wish I could believe it, but yeah,
Why can't you?
I do feel like at the very least it's a strangely interesting coincidence
Hmm.
that there would be like symmetry there, especially because like the water thing is so irrelevant. Like it's like
Yeah.
it almost feels forced that they included it. So yeah, it almost makes me want to come up with a better explanation because like it does very little. He didn't want to get on the sub in the first place. Like probably if Jack hadn't pushed him in the water, he just would have,
You know,
fired back at the Whitmore team and like
I
stalled
was
enough
thinking about
instead of
that. I was thinking about why is he firing a gun instead of just turning into smoke monster? And
hmm
I'm sure we said this previously, but I'm reimagining the idea that the water actually prevented him from turning into the smoke monster, like being wet.
Oh,
Because there's something about when he comes out of the water that I feel like Sawyer's plan worked. There's something about I don't know when he comes out of the water, he's so the consternation on his face. I feel like it was like, oh yeah, Sawyer was right that did something, and so when Locke goes out and starts shooting the Widmore people, now he's bulletproof. He doesn't need to sort of expend the energy and turn to the
right.
smoke monster and
I
then
think
put out.
it's kind of for show too, because like
Yeah,
he's trying to stall so he doesn't get on the sub, and he wants like them to like leave him behind.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, but I was just thinking maybe that's a thing. He's when he's wet, and that's why he didn't want to fly over to Hydra Island.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, I'd like that to be true. And it'd be nice if they would connect that to something, like there's a cave in the water, if there was some like association there with the origin of the smoke monster, like why water is, some kind of weakness or something like that. I don't know. I feel like there's
Oh, that's
almost a story
interesting.
there.
Yeah, like the cork in the water somehow suppressing the evil entity. Something could be, yeah, and that goes back to
Yeah.
Jacob and the metaphor of the wine bottle and the liquid and the cork, and that could have been something there with the water.
Yeah.
Because they left that whole thing open about the water and the light, right, working
Yeah,
together to
it's
do
very
something.
vague, but it does feel like that should be some kind of opposing force or whatever to whatever the evil is, or maybe they're all the same or whatever. Maybe it's just like kryptonite where it comes from the same place, so that's why he's weak to it. I don't know.
I also think it could be a really boring scientific thing of like, evaporation and condensation and like
Boring.
pressure. Yeah, just some weird thing about, yeah, well, in order for him to turn into a smoke monster, his particles have to
Oh no.
evaporate, and they can't do it when they're wet because
Can
they're
nanobots
too
operate
heavy.
water?
Not no. They're SPF 100. That has nothing to do with water.
Because I was reminded of your old "the smoke monsters nanobots" theory.
I'm a science guy. I want every weird mystery just to be a Star Trek answer. So I was hoping for nanobot. I remember thinking we'd see a control room and like a
Mm,
touchpad, and like you control the
yeah.
smoke. It's the nanobot security system.
I'm not entirely convinced that they didn't at least like play around with that idea a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
because I do feel like some of that stuff with some of that stuff on the Blast Door map, and the fence, and also just like the fact that the quote unquote control that Ben has is in a Dharma house. Like, I feel like there's at least a hint that like they had maybe an idea, and I guess the other thing would be the idea of it being a security system.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like there was a hint, more than a hint there, that it could be some kind of technology.
Yeah.
I don't think that was like off base for the early part of the show, because I think there were clues that, but I think they just decided that's not what they wanted to do. So it ended up just being a lot of misleading stuff.
Yep.
Which they can always do, because like no one ever has to be right about anything. So, even if they've told us a bunch of like erroneous information, they could just say, well, like, how do they know? Like, why would they be right? And you know what? Like, you're right. But you know what else? Like, you wrote that thing, and like, generally, like, that's how you convey information. I mean, you could do that shit with any story where it's like the character says that, like, how do you know that? And it's true, but it's also like that's how you convey information. I mean, no one, I don't know. Anyway.
I think they really should have been, changing the subject a bit. I think they really should have been more unified in what they're doing at this point. And maybe it's just, I don't know. I just feel like that whole sequence where they're like trying to get to the sub. I mean, that's what we've been wanting on the show forever, right? That feeling of them all like finally getting off the island together. And they did it once. And we're like, cool, let's do it for real this time and never come back.
Yeah. They did it the one time, and it was more satisfying, really. It was a bigger moment. But it was tinged with tragedy because they left people behind.
Oh, just like this one, huh?
So, but yeah, I do think, I totally agree that that's like a bigger problem. Another pivot I wanted to make from this was just talking about, we had some major character deaths here in this episode. And from watching the early part of the show, like, obviously, like, Allah was different early on, and Locke was like super like interesting early on, and lost that really quickly. But another thing that really stood out is like how great Saeed is in the early part of the show. Like, he's like such a go-to character for like a lot of reasons. Like he never cares per se about the mysteries of the island, but he does care about like figuring out what's going on for practical purposes. And so, when he sets out to explore the island because, he's banishing himself because he tortures Sawyer, it's like a huge turning point. Like a lot of stuff comes out of that because, he's willing to, and there's obviously the earlier stuff about the radio. And I do feel like in this final scene that we see here, with the bomb, and it's like they are trying to call back to that era of Saeed, with like the transceiver and all of this like technical stuff that used to be like his go-to thing.
Yeah.
It felt kind of half-hearted and not really earned. And I felt like they also lost track of what his arc was this season. Like,
it just he immediately switches.
Yeah. And it was unacknowledged, like they were all like, oh, Saeed, like he's like too far gone, like whatever, but like no one didn't trust him. There was no weird moment there where it's like, well, you've been working for the Smoke Monster for a while, like,
well, because they're in the middle of working with the Smoke Monster too. I mean, they almost immediately after, I don't know if you can trust Saeed, it's like, yeah, the Smoke Monster's saving her butt, like he's around, you know what I mean? And even in this scene, they're all trying to sneak on the sub together. Now they have like a sub plan here. Wow, pun intended. Sub plan. They have a sub plan to their sub plan, which is Sawyer's plan. 15 years. Finally said something new. I think. I don't think I said that before. Anyway,
right.
So we've got the proof. I'm losing my point. My point was they should be more, sub plan. They should be more unified here into their goal. And I just think, but back to Saeed. Yeah. So Saeed, I think you're right. They completely lost track of whatever they were doing when he came back from the dead. Whatever that was supposed to be about, I still don't understand. And then you're like, yeah, well, he goes off on this like heroic moment, but 2 scenes before, they don't know if they can trust him.
Right.
But it also is moot because they don't have a choice.
Right.
That's what also is weird about a lot of these scenes revolving around the group dynamics and Man in Black and stuff, is like they don't really have a lot of choice. So it kind of doesn't matter if they trust him or trust who. They have to kind of do whatever's in front of them. And they also aren't really motivated by any very strong desires themselves for most of the characters here. So if Man in Black says, hey, we're going to go do this thing, they're like, yeah, okay. I mean, like, I don't know. Like, Kate's like, bitch, I don't know. I came back for Claire. I don't know what's up with her. My plan's done, I guess. I guess I can leave the island now. That was the only reason I was here.
I feel actually, now that you say that, I feel like maybe that's why Kate gets shot, so they can dodge the issue of like Claire not being there. Like,
yeah, she would want to leave with. She would not want to leave without Claire. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was thinking about that because I'm like, I just find it's a bit odd.
Did she even say like, where's Claire?
I don't remember her saying that. I do feel like she should have, but yeah, I'm not sure that happened.
I feel like when they said where's Sun and Jin, that's the moment they should have said, what about Claire?
Yeah.
But Kate should have said, and Claire too, and then Jack could have said, no, Claire didn't get on the sub.
Right. Yeah. That makes me.
And then we get back to this thing with Claire, because now she's going to be upset that they left her again.
Right. Oh God.
And it's almost like the whole weird thing where her character starts out with like this whole idea of her giving up Aaron for adoption. Quote unquote, maybe abandoning him.
She did say it for the record. She did say, "Where's Claire?"
And then what happened?
Jack says she's still up there, and Kate says you can't leave without her. And
okay, we were talking over that then.
Yeah. So they do acknowledge it
before. Okay, makes sense.
But I think, because she's incapacitated, there's not like an extra thing of like she's gonna go back and
it's but I was just saying, the thing with Claire is interesting because the way her character starts out, this idea that she's giving up Aaron, whether or not that she's abandoning him, this whole abandonment thing is what she is playing out, but like
Yeah,
the
and
victim
Christian
of,
too, like
yeah.
abandonment there.
Yeah. Good point. So it's an interesting thing of like her, and what does that mean? I guess the victory over abandonment issues is not is being okay by yourself, or you know what I mean, or
Mhm.
reconciling those feelings. So it seems like I don't know. It's almost like she should walk away from everybody, and
Right.
that would be her character growth or something. Or
And
like
that's
she should
almost what happens, strangely. You
okay.
know, just in terms of going off with the smoke monster. I mean, technically she was
Yeah.
with him, but like she removed herself from most people.
Yeah. It would have been interesting for her
And
to
yet
say,
she still viewed it as an abandonment.
but
So
but
it didn't
that was
quite
the
work.
thing. Yeah, she was not in a good place when she did that. That was by it has to be by choice. It was still by necessity, right? Because everybody had left, so it has to be by
It
choice.
was before everybody left. I think it's something that's very confusing. You know, she's with Sawyer and Miles at the time, and you know, it's just in the middle of the
I mean,
night.
she leaves them before they leave the island, but I mean, at a certain point soon after, they are gone,
Right.
and she's left alone and has to continue sort of being alone. I think
Yeah.
that's where the abandonment starts,
Right.
even though she technically abandoned Aaron herself.
Like this will never cease to bother me that, like, you know, she didn't really, like, the only time we see her after that, like, you know, when she sees Locke, like she didn't seem concerned about finding any of them. She knew
He was
that Locke
claimed.
was trying to move the island, and Christian is like, don't tell anyone you saw her, you know, and she doesn't really react to that. So it's just like, I just feel like there's like a missing bit there where it's like she never really seemed to acknowledge the effect that, you know, the smoke monster, Christian, Locke, or whatever, like was having. Like she made it like the other people just like left her on the beach or something, and then the smoke monster showed up after they were gone, you know.
That's what happened.
Not to mention the helicopter thing, which I always felt like should have happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, yeah, unresolved plotline number 73, basically. But the thing I was gonna say, Claire's arc is unsatisfying, but she's not dead yet, at least. So I was just gonna say, in terms of Saeed, I feel like just thinking through him on the show that like it was season 3 where he started like losing his way.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe it was even earlier than that, but I feel like they got a lot of mileage out of his interactions with Ben, Henry Gale, you know, in season 2. It really gave him like something to do, and that, you know, that had a lot of weight and was relevant to the plot and so on. And again, like Saeed in Saeed mode, you know, trying to get information, like investigating, figuring things out, and really pushing the story forward. And I feel like that's part of why I really gravitated to his character early on. I think in season 3, like there's still a little of that lingering, but it really feels like they've run out of ideas for what to do with him by the end. And so he's just like there on the beach and like, we'll have him kill another with his legs and that'll be cool. But like he's not really contributing much to the storyline anymore. You know, he's just like, you know, and you could also see the Fatch and the Famp as a manifestation of an early version of that as well. But I remember when I was listening to the Missing Pieces podcast, we were talking about Saeed. I was like, I think Saeed might die this season because it feels like his story's over, you know? And I feel like what they did is they made up this plot where he's going to kill people for Ben. And that's the thing that he's been running on for, you know, the whole, you know, rest of the show.
But I feel like they didn't come to a conclusion.
It really didn't. It never really worked in the first place. Like even just the middle part didn't work. Like it, you know, the initial setup was intriguing, but like it's just so ridiculously muddled what was going on there. And we talked about it at the time. Like, was he killing the people? You know, did Widmore kill Nadia? Was he killing the people to protect the Oceanic Six? Was he killing the people to protect the people who were left behind on the island? Was it both? Like,
yeah, I feel like there's a version where you know, after all the killing Saeed did, like somebody sits him down and was like, Saeed, we've got footage of what happened, and it's Saeed doing all the killing, and like there are no Widmore men, and he killed Nadia. You know what I mean? It's just like
oh my
he
god,
created his own like persona, and like it's just all in his head or something. Because yeah, it's so weird because it seems like the point would be, you know, going from where Saeed started as a torturer for the Iraqi National Guard or Republican Guard, and then denouncing that after meeting Nadia, and then hating his torturous ways, and then coming to the island and then torturing Sawyer and hating that again, and then now going to Ben and then killing for hire, but in this case to seemingly protect his friends, and he realizes that wasn't quite true. So once again, he's been manipulated into being a murderer, right? So then we flash forward to Locke, which again is like, okay, here's a test again. Like, is someone going to manipulate you into doing bad things or not? And it seems like that's the but he just like gives up at that point because he's a zombie for some reason. And it's never clear to me what his arc is supposed to be about, and where does it really solidify. The You know, the way he dies here goes to that idea that, you know, he would give his life to protect, you know, his friends or whatever. I wish there was, you know, I don't really like how that scene plays out. There's really too many characters and too many story threads happening in the scene with the bombs going
yeah,
off to really make that feel satisfying, which is why Sawyer just like pulls the thing and we just move the plot forward.
yeah.
Because the longer scene, Saeed would have tried some things and whatever. But you know, and it also reminds me of the Michael scene on the freighter.
Very
I feel like
much.
I wanted Man in Black to say "You can go now" at some
Go
point.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
Totally.
But so yeah, Saeed, yeah, they really kind of mess him up after, you know, season 5 and 6, and you're just like, I don't know what the point. It's almost like what should have happened was after he dies, he finds his humanity finally. But that's not what happened. I feel like that should have been thematically what they depicted, and it should have been like this counter intuitive idea or something like that. Like when he was alive and human, he was inhuman because he was able to be manipulated and able to torture and kill. But then once he dies and is resurrected and then comes into some realization about some fill in the blank writers, right? I don't know. I don't want to do all your work for you, but you know, then he becomes the most human he's ever been, and then that looks like however it looks like in some plot driven way.
Yeah.
I wish that would have somehow been the storyline. You know, some reconciling of like just what his whole life meant. And it gets muddled because he's got this violent torturer storyline and he's got the love for Nadia / Shannon storyline, and the
Yeah.
Nadia one's related and the Shannon one is like tangentially related.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't really get this strong overlap about what the point really is, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. No, I agree. I do think like a major point they're trying to make is that you know people are like manipulating him in various ways into doing various kinds of violence. I think they don't do a good enough job of distinguishing between the idea of like killing people versus torturing them. I feel like those are different things, but whatever. Like I can put that aside. I think like that's the thing they were trying to hang the story on, and I totally agree that there is no resolution for that at all. And I think so it's like it's an internal journey for him. So like the details of why he was killing the people and stuff don't really matter. But then the internal journey doesn't really conclude either. So it's like that makes me even more irritated that the details don't matter. As I'm thinking now, I'm thinking, wait a minute, they're right here with Widmore right now. And Saeed, like, shouldn't he still be like I'm just confused again. Shouldn't he still be like pissed off about Nadia being killed? Like if he thinks Widmore was behind that? Like they're like right there. It's like
no, don't talk about the obvious. Look over here. Pay no attention to the plot point behind the curtain.
I just like I feel like I haven't thought about that before, but it's a bit odd. Like they're like right here, ground zero for like that whole.
You're gonna make me throw up.
Like, are you the economist? Were you the economist? Like, I don't know.
Oh god, now I'm really gonna vomit. Yeah, I want those answers so much. I want that scene so badly. I'm nauseous. Like, or excuse me, I'm nauseated. Correctly. Yeah, I know. Don't say you're nauseous, people. That means you cause nausea.
That's wrong.
You have to say you're nauseated. I hope that's right. That's what I learned.
I think that's right.
Don't.
I learned it from you, so who knows?
I know, right? Yeah. Well, if you say it's true, then I believe it because I learned it from you.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a closed loop. Who learned it from whom? But yeah, I think you're right. Like because again, that's the thing I want as a very pedantic person when it comes to storytelling is I want the scene where Saeed goes, Widmore's here. Well, that motherfucker, let me at him. And then he storms up to Widmore, and then they have the classic scene where he sucker punches him, and they tussle, and then they everybody pulls them apart, and then he's like, what's the matter with you, son? And he's like, you killed Nadia. He goes, I didn't kill anyone, whatever. Like that scene where we get some resolution to that thing, that would have just been amazing to have that connection to that input, that extra perspective on that story, like for Widmore to actually comment on his perspective on all that thing. Oh, could you imagine Widmore going, you were the assassin taking out all of my men one by one.
Yeah, I don't think he even knows that.
Yeah, like it's crazy. And then imagine Widmore's face when he realizes, and you go, why would you do that? Benjamin Linus. You know what I mean? Like, and must have been like, like a rat eating cheese.
Right.
His cheese eating grin. His rat like cheese eating grin. Yeah, I mean that got my skin tingling, like that whole idea. I feel like I don't know if we've mentioned that before.
I don't think we have. I'm really surprised. I never really thought about the connections there. But what it makes me think in general is like, let me try to frame this the right way. Like, okay, so I'm just gonna throw in a couple details here. So like, you remember the episode from season 4, the other woman about Juliet, and Ben is like obsessed with her, and like she has an affair with Goodwin, and then he sends Goodwin to be killed, and he's like, you're mine, and it's a weird episode.
Yep.
And then like there's a whole thing at the what was it called? The wind tunnel? No, sorry. What was that station called? The Tempest. Thank you. Yeah. I knew that had something to do with wind.
No, the tropical depression? No.
Yeah, the wind tunnel. That doesn't sound good. Okay. Anyway, yeah, at the Tempest where like they have to disable the gas and blah blah blah. Okay, whatever. It doesn't even matter. But just to say, I remember in season 6, someone asked on the official podcast, they were like, is Ben ever gonna like acknowledge like Juliet's death? Like you had this whole episode where he's like obsessed with her, and then like they were like, is there ever gonna be? And they were like, oh, yeah, that's probably not gonna happen, or so they just kind of brushed it off. And I'm just gonna throw another thread out here, and then I'll draw it together. So I've always felt when I watch Fire Walk with Me, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, that through the course of the series, they piled on so many things into the investigation to like draw out the story and stuff that like when it came time to show it, when it came time to like portray that time period of Laura Palmer's life, it was like it was overloaded with shit. And therefore they had to cut some of it because they didn't like there was just no way for one person to do all of those things in a way that was coherent and that like made sense
without like teleportation technology and
exactly. And so I feel like Lost maybe is partially in that position where they've built so many threads over the years and they don't have time to properly pay them all off. Like for example, the Ben and Widmore conflict is barely addressed in this season. Only very briefly. Ben gets to shoot Widmore. Like that's all they had time for. You know, after their like epic, you know, decades long feud that was like, you know, a huge part of the engine for what was going on in the show, like they barely have time for that. And so I feel like Saeed's thing with Widmore is just a casualty of the fact that there's a lot of these threads they've built up that they do not feel that they have time to do and do the story that they want to do. You know what I mean? I feel like that's what's going on.
But of course, I think that's definitely true. But what the result of that is a lack of paying off those threads. And paying off threads is how you make a character arc. So that, you know, like I completely agree with you. They don't have time for it, but what it means is ultimately they don't have time to finish these character arcs. Make things feel like we understand why they even happen. Because it's one thing for something to like if it matters or not to the main story, but to me there's another set of questions just about like, well, what was the point of that? Because obviously there's some things that just happen to the characters, you know, oh, we got to find food, or oh, we're gonna move to the cave, you know, oh, now we're gonna move back to the, you know, there's certain things that are just like plot logistics, and there's things that are storylines that they're telling about the characters, and without something at the end to button it up, it becomes unclear what the point was. And you just get like some ideas. So Saeed tortured some people sometimes, and sometimes he was often manipulated to murder. Sometimes he was very helpful with investigations. He had an inquisitive mind. He was good with his hands. You know, he loved Shannon. He loved Nadia. You know, it's like here's a bunch of stuff, right? But that's not a character arc.
It doesn't really have a shape. It's just like a pile of things.
It wasn't the shape of things to come. It was the shape of things that never arrived.
Yeah. No, I agree. And actually, the Outrigger was another example of that, where they basically just admitted like they didn't have the ability to work that into the story. And it is like, yeah, did they need another season? Like did they just end it too quickly? Like, I don't know. It's like, did they just introduce too many storylines to begin with? Should they have pared back a little earlier on so they didn't like run into this problem later of not having time to fulfill the things they started? Like, I don't know exactly what the right answer is, but clearly something went wrong.
I think a very easy, and maybe this is oversimplifying how they could have written the story, you know, realistically, but something very easy, like if you could step back from the show and say, the main point of the show was about a group of strangers who are pulled against their will to a mysterious island that has fantastical properties. And as they try to survive and escape / find their purpose, right? Some will want to leave and some will stay. They, you know, discover a person entity being you know who they find to be dangerous, right? if this person escapes the island, that will be bad for the world. And these, and I'm really oversimplifying. I'm making it a comic book story, basically. So basically, as they struggle to stop this person from leaving, they each contribute in their own way towards the ultimate goal, right? And the reason I sort of oversimplify it that way is to now make this example of like, okay, take Saeed's storyline, right? Take his death, right? If I think it would be okay that he doesn't have a very crystal clear arc as far as the details of what he mostly was upset about, the loves of his life, and the whole torturing, murder, violence things, right? It would be, I think we still wouldn't like it, but less would, it would be less importance on that. Therefore, it'd be more okay that it's not perfect. If instead what we were satisfied with was how he contributed to the final goal of the larger group, which is stopping Man in Black, right?
Yeah.
So his heroic in at the moment of saving Jack and Kate and Hurley and Sawyer, right, by taking the bomb out of the room enough for it's not to kill everyone in the room, right? Like that would have been like, wow, okay, that was his journey. His journey led him from this person who started off the show as sort of a loner and not trusting anybody, and a torturer who doesn't care about whatever you'd say, and then he ends up this other way, right? And sort of in that oversimplistic way, it would feel symmetrical and like they made a statement, right? They'd said something concrete about him, but because the show isn't really about that, even though it's like those things, the characters do things and Man in Black has stopped, right, in a very general way.
Yeah,
that's there, but it's not really what the plot is.
Right.
In that like Avengers way, where everybody knows the point is to stop Thanos. It's not like, could you imagine if Iron Man's like, well, should we be stopping Thanos? Like, I don't know. I haven't heard it, but I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be weird if like 3 out of the 8 Avengers or whatever weren't sure about the plan or who was good or bad, right? Like, that's not how those stories can work. And what's weird is Lost is that kind of story sometimes. So you want it to play out in that way. Again, like you want the incident to mean something. You want Jughead to have done something concrete and explainable. So it's weird. So again, Sun and Jin, right?
I was gonna bring up Sun and Jin because I actually think Sun and Jin in a way are similar to Desmond and Penny in that I feel like their story was complete, once they sort of reconciled. So like it's when you look at the overall shape of it, it does feel like a lot of dragging their feet. Like I think initially, they had a lot of conflict, a lot of interesting elements to their story. This whole backstory of like they came from different worlds. It was a marriage across class lines, and her father didn't respect Jin, but he allowed him to work for him, but he gave him these horrible things to do,
which had nothing to do with the island.
Which had nothing to do with the island. No, none of that was related.
All that interesting stuff had nothing to do with
any of that. No, of course not. And then, as a result of that, like the marriage becomes bad, and so Sun like tries to like learn English so she can like run away, and like that's the so when they get to the island, like they're at this like maximum level of conflict, or maybe not quite, but close. And sort of like gradually like reconciling to the point where then Jin is on the raft, and then they get separated again at the point where they've kind of made up. And so then it's like, oh, we gotta find each other again. Like that's the thing. And so then in season 2, with the tail section, like Jin finally comes back, they're reunited. Yay. The next beat they have in the story is the whole thing about the baby. and Ji Yeon, you know, and the issues with the pregnancy in season 3. So that's kind of that's a little arc that happens, but it really feels like sort of once Jin comes back, once they're reunited, like basically their story's over. Like they're at that Desmond and Penny point.
Mm-hmm.
And they struggle to come up with it. I mean, you know, they try to tie it in with the drama about pregnancy in season 3, but you know, it never really comes to any. It was kind of fake. Like they didn't really intend to do anything with that. It was just like an attempt to turn it into some fodder for an episode, but like ultimately there was no connection.
Fodder for Frama.
There you go. And I feel like their next move is, well, shit, separate them again. You know, like that's all we got.
Well, yeah, and that's like you're saying, that's the Penny Desmond thing.
Yeah,
because that's the tension of, like, you know, star-crossed lovers or whatever, is like them being apart. So, or like like Sun and Jin are star-crossed, but then become like the perfect lovers, like Desmond and Penny. Well, I guess they're from the whole different classes too thing. It's the same.
Yeah, it's really
same story.
It's really close.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing how close it is.
It's fun. I wonder, maybe that's so funny. Oh my god, I want to see this version of Lost where it's kind of a comedy. Where like Widmore, because you know Widmore and Pac know each other. The dads know each other. So you imagine like Widmore, they're on the golf course with each other, you know, and Widmore is like, "Oh, Pac, oh, you never guess my daughter's dating this bum." And then Pac's like, "Hey, I got a plan. I got something you can do." Same thing happened to my daughter. Let me tell you what I did.
Oh man,
I can totally see. Yeah. And then you give him a watch and you tell him to take it to Los Angeles. I don't have any watches, but I do have a sailboat that he could use in a solo race around the world to prove himself. Yeah, it's weird how that's the same story. I don't know if that gets enough attention. It's the same archetype.
Yeah, it is very odd. And
Penny and Desmond never fell out of love with each other.
Right. They didn't have like they didn't have the bad period because Widmore never actually accepted Desmond, like even to any extent.
It's so funny you say that, because that goes back to the problem we kind of identify with Penny and Desmond after they leave the island and they have little baby Charlie. Is he's perfect, he's happy.
Yeah,
he has no reason to come back to the island, so he's dragging his feet the whole time of this season. So it's really unsatisfying, and that's actually what should have happened, right? Is that seesaw effect, right? Where like, or the pendulum effect, where like, just like you said, like they skipped the bad times because they were apart from each other. So they just, you know, only had the idealized version of their partner in their head the entire time they're away from each other and trying to find each other. And so it's like when they get back together, then they should have had the bad time. So there should have been that thing again where like when Desmond's having, like his dreams about the island and all that kind of stuff that he had a couple times, like that should have been causing problems in their relationship, you know. And they could have done the classic thing of, "Oh, Des, you left the island, but you've never really left the island." You know, I thought when oh, Penny, when I came back, I thought I'd never think about that place, but I can't, whatever. So you're right, like that should have been where they had the conflict, thus prompting him to come back to the island to resolve whatever that would have been, so he can go back home and be completely like, it could have been the same thing. I left those people behind.
Right.
And I can't, Charlie, especially because they, made it clear Charlie had an important connection to him. And, so he could have said Charlie would have never forgiven me for leaving Claire or something. Maybe that's
I wish
he comes back for Claire and Kate comes back for some other reason,
Or does he see Claire this season? I gotta watch that, because that's a good point. That fucking helicopter thing, that's so annoying to me. that they don't pay that off. But
Yeah.
yeah, as you're talking, what I was thinking was like there's two options I'm thinking about for Sun and Jin. I feel like if they wanted to end here, I mean, I don't know. It was okay. I feel like it's a bit repetitive. I kind of feel like it's been I feel like it's just too drawn out for the second separation. I feel like they should have died like if they were going to die like this, they should have died after the first separation when they got back together and then like just skip Ji Yeon. The other option that occurs to me is they both get off the island with Ji Yeon and they're like off the show like Walt or something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the end of their story. They don't want to come back to the island. They're happy, etc. Like
That's Desmond and Penny's story.
it's Desmond and Penny, exactly. I know you're totally right.
Taken.
Hey, why not? I mean, but they already. Yeah, I know. No,
But then
I
you
just
don't
feel
get
like
the tragedy. You don't get the yeah.
yeah. It's very awkward. It's like I get the idea that they're going for here, but like like Jin didn't. I don't know.
It does make it worse that they have a daughter out there who has
Yeah.
no clue what's happening, and it just seems like a
And they
casual.
don't even talk about it. I feel
Yeah,
like
it's
it's
like a casualty of bad writing, or like the choices that the limited choices they had, at the time.
yeah, like I could live with them choosing it, but it's just super awkward to me that they don't even bring it up. Like, like
He didn't he say he saw a picture of her or something? What did he say?
they talk about her earlier in the episode, but I mean when he's gonna choose to die with her.
Yeah.
I feel like there should at least be some words exchanged about that.
Yeah, son should have said, not just save yourself, but go to our daughter.
Yeah. And if he's gonna say no, he needs to respond to that.
That's why they didn't say it, because he couldn't have said no to that.
Right. Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. But then it just hangs over the whole scene. It's like the sonic fence between them, where it's just like, why are you putting, like by not acknowledging this, like you're making it worse,
Uh-huh.
Like don't. I don't know.
Fences work when you don't acknowledge them, they get worse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what just
yeah. So I guess option 3 is like don't kill them both off here. Just have one of them die. And
I think option 4
is
there's option 4, which is make their deaths be for a reason.
Yeah, you could do that too.
I mean, low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, I'm like assuming that we have to keep all the other stuff the same, but yeah, like trying to make tweaks. But yeah, I mean, ultimately that would be better. That's true for Sayid too. Like it's a very lame death. Like I'm gonna carry this bomb from here to there, and that's my death.
It was weird to me that he didn't try to close one of the doors, which are notorious for stopping things from going to one room to another.
Yeah,
and I thought maybe that, but I guess it wouldn't have necessarily flooded. So they needed the flooding thing. So,
right.
I mean, they did it for what the story they need to tell, obviously. But, we wish the story was different.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. But again, I think like that idea of Sayid trying to be a hero at the end. I wish they had connected that to some regret that he had about what he had done. Like when he was like, I just wish if he had said something to Man in Black a few episodes ago about like, you made me a zombie, but I'm still human, or something, something where he's resolved to fight against what he thinks is something he can't actually change, or something like he can't disavow that he was brought back from the dead seemingly by Man in Black. Okay, great. But that doesn't, at the beginning, so then you have a little mini arc where he succumbs to that reality and he thinks, I just have to do what this guy says and I'm just a zombie and woe is me, Sayid in the well, right, or whatever. But like the part 2 would be him saying, no, I still can make choices. and a person is good because of the choices that they make, not because of what a machine says, right? So if I make a good choice, I can be a good person. And so if he had the last few beats to his story be looking for that opportunity to prove to himself that's who he was at the very end. I'm not the torturer the military made me. I'm not the assassin Ben made me. I'm not the zombie Man in Black made me. I am who I choose. Like that would have been cool, man. Great character arc, great defined storyline. I get it. It makes sense. It works. It ties through the thread through all his major storylines, but that's what's missing is that like the reflection. I think a lot of times is what's missing with their character arcs is them able to look back and say, this is what I was before, and this is what I'm choosing to do now. And a lot of times they don't, in a lot of movies and in most stories, you get that in the climax, right? The Matrix, when Agent Smith is seemingly beating Neo and he calls him Mr. Anderson, and he's like, my name's Neo. You know what I mean? Like those moments where it's like the audience is feeling the cyclical nature of the arc, right? And it's coming back. The flaw, the problem that they had before is now representing itself for the final time to give the character an opportunity to demonstrate in action whether they have changed or not, right? And and to show specifically how much they've changed, right? So it's weird when we get shortchanged with that a lot of times with characters at the end of the season, and again, like I think Saeed running with the bomb 30 paces is like literally a great example of that. Like they didn't have time to make it be, because thinking about how Michael died, right? Like he had time to acknowledge the sacrifice he was making. And not everyone got to know the sacrifice he made, but he got to know what he was doing and actually how it tied to his guilt about Ana Lucia and Lily.
Yeah. There was a whole episode where he really got to wallow in that guilt, and I do feel like they connected those dots way better with, even though I think Michael's story is unsatisfying, but not nearly as much as this stuff. It's actually quite a lot better, and it does show like
the part of Michael's story that's unsatisfying is his afterlife.
That's what ruined him.
Yeah,
it's true. It's true. I mean, like I was still like somewhat disappointed even before that with the season 4, but it does like it's so much worse.
I just thought of a cool scene that I don't know how this would ever make any sense to be on the show, but I just thought it'd be so cool to have a scene where like right before Man in Black dies, Ghost Michael shows up and says, "You can go now."
Oh man! Oh my god! I would love that. I would love.
I don't know how that would make any sense, but that would be the coolest thing ever. You can go now, bitch.
Oh man! Yeah.
Man.
No, I wish they cared to do something like that. That would be great. That would be fucking great. Yeah, so I was gonna say, I do think like the internal struggle of Saeed is very underplayed. His final centric episode is the one where he really like turns to the dark side officially, and between then and now, this episode we just watched, like we've really just seen him fairly robotically follow the Man in Black's orders. The only other scene that we had was the one where the Man in Black tells him to go kill Desmond, and he has that brief scene with Desmond where he's like, he brought me back, so maybe he can bring Nadia back, and then Desmond's like, what you gonna tell her? And it's like, okay, so like that's the closest we get really to a Saeed reflective moment.
That's the pivot point. That should have been it. It should have been more a question of he should have said something like, "Hey brother, and once you see her again, would you recognize the man you become or
Yeah.
whatever, you know? And then boom, now he's confronted with the fantasy of seeing her again and reconciling the reality that he's a dumb zombie.
Yeah.
And she would be scared. She wouldn't recognize who he is, and it's not what he wants. He doesn't want to be with her as he is. He would want to be with her as the man he was, and that the man she wants, right? And that would necessitate him being good and
Yeah.
and doing good things, and therefore he would be looking for an opportunity to do that and to sacrifice himself to go out like that, to prove against all available evidence that he's not evil just because a machine said he was. Like,
Right.
to me, that seems really powerful because it actually really ties together the idea that what he's really been fighting against is other people's perception of him.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though he fulfills that perception by believing in it and doing it. But that's what he needs to learn is how to break that pattern, right? And yeah, that would have been, that would have, again, it's that thing where they walk up to the line of a really great thing to do and they don't choose to do it that way.
I think it's also a time problem where that scene is supposed to accomplish like the whole idea of what you're describing, and it's so quick. Like, it just can't really come to terms with this whole arc and like bring it to a satisfying conclusion. And you know, the follow-up to that is back to zombie Sayid. Like, he doesn't act any differently until they're on the sub.
My point. And so that's my point. I definitely agree about the time is always an issue, but they could have made those few interim scenes after that conversation with Desmond and before he blows up. They could show Sayid being different. They could show. They could have shown him, you know, even when, you know, I forgot how the staging of that scene, but like even when Sawyer is telling Jag, he's Man in Black's not getting on the sub or whatever. When he hears there's an insurrection against Man in Black, that's a moment for Sayid to agree, and then we can at least go, oh, okay, he's putting a new action, a new. I thought you were with him. I'm only with myself, or whatever, you know, whatever. Like, whatever you say. But I think those would have been the moments that, even though they didn't have time for the long didactic scenes I'm like wanting, like those the time that they did show him still could have been presented with
better utilized. Yeah, I totally agree. I also feel like the fact that, you know, the thing he says before he dies is like, you know, Desmond's in a well, the Man in Black put him there, he's probably important or something, you know. Like, first of all, like, he hasn't shared that information before now. And then, you know, it's going to be you, Jack. I don't know. He has this weird...
So he was going to leave the island without Desmond?
Yeah, that's...
He's going to leave Desmond in a well, or what?
Looks like it. Yeah, it makes it weird. Because it's like, you never mentioned this before now. Why are you mentioning this now? And it's like, he has some weird flash. I feel like there's a hint that he's going through something there. But it's such a tiny hint. Because it's so quick. I mean, I just don't know what to make of that at all.
You think he's changing or something in that moment?
Yeah. I mean, it feels like a radical transformation has come over him.
Well, it seems like he's about to die, and the characters need a clue of what to do for their end game next.
Yeah, but it's like being about to die, like, changed the game in terms of what he thought that he should share with the group, you know? And I think that's interesting. I don't know. Is it merely the fact that the Man in Black was clearly going to kill him as well? Does that, like, break down his loyalty? You know, is that the final straw?
Oh, I guess maybe that's it. Yeah, the idea that, oh, he was just going to kill me, therefore not fulfilling, bringing back
the promise of bringing
whoever.
Yeah, I guess it's actually Shannon, but whatever, it doesn't even matter. Like, giving him the thing he wanted, you know, like, clearly isn't going to happen.
It's weird to know if that's the idea. Is it just, well, I was going to tell you guys anyway, there just wasn't a good time yet, or or yeah, I'm not on his side anymore
because he did like disobey the order by not killing Desmond, but he didn't tell anyone about it. So he's like halfway between, you know, betraying the Man in Black and
Oh
still
yeah,
working
and I
for him.
guess yeah, maybe there's a logistic thing where he doesn't want to say it necessarily because yeah, it's a secret, like that he doesn't want Man in Black to know that he didn't do
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And they've been around him for most of this time.
That
so.
is true. That is true.
Yeah, so maybe it's just sort of a logistic thing, but yeah, I just wish Saeed would have woken up before this scene.
Yeah.
Then we could have seen something.
It's too late. I think by the time we're at this point, it's too late. And it just feels so jarring to like have them try to call back to old
Saeed
school
jarring?
Saeed jarring, definitely. It just feels awkward. It doesn't feel like it actually fits what they've done so far. And I think if they had finessed or utilized those earlier moments in a more efficient way, they could have built in a few little steps to bridge this gap, because it's just really not convincing the way they did it. Like I'm very disappointed by that. I think you're right that the raw material for the story that they seems like they wanted to tell but didn't, that was all there. And they just needed to draw it together. But yeah, it just makes me wish like they could have focused more and like cut some of this other stuff, you know, like that's how I start feeling at the end of a lot of shows, or it's like, why couldn't you cut all this stuff so you could spend more time on these other things that are just really underdeveloped and you would think would matter more? You know? I mean, God, the whittling.
So much whittling.
Why? Why the
yet
whittling?
not enough whittling. They should have whittled out some of those storylines.
I mean, I could have lived without Widmore's stuff. It's a waste. There's so much stuff like they really could have done without, and then maybe they could have had time to attend to some of these other stories, you know, and give them the attention that they needed to actually like go somewhere.
Yep.
I want to bargain for time.
Yeah, I was just looking back at the beginning of this episode where they set up the whole idea that, you know, Widmore's the bad guy. You know, Saeed is like telling Jack, yeah, Widmore, there was a mortar attack by Widmore's people, and
right,
Locke saved you, Jack, and this whole idea, you know. So I was just thinking, like, this is where we should have seen some beginning hints of a different Saeed if he was going to be rethinking his allegiance or anything. So just looking to see if there's any dialogue there about that might hint at anything else that Saeed might be thinking that's new.
They are with him, so that does present a problem because he can't like break cover too much.
Yeah.
But I agree. Yeah, it's all very functional. It sounds like he's just giving exposition here.
Yeah, it's a weird. Yeah, the Sun and Jin thing is. Yeah, it's weird for like. I don't know. I just really hate Jacob. You know, like you guys are broken, so I'll bring you here and break you more. Like I just wish there were more. It's just such a weird, you know, just not being able to reconcile the reasonings behind what was happening with Man in Black and Jacob in the early days, and this whole half of an idea of a contest about the nature of humanity. And you know, I probably have said this before, but I feel like the contest should have been who's ever right gets to own the island. And I think that's another problem with the contest in the origins of the island is it's sort of this parallel, the idea that Man in Black can't leave in general, the idea that he can't leave because if someone's leading the island, and the idea that he can't leave specifically because of some relationship with Jacob, you know, and you know what I mean. And then the idea that he can't leave because he smoked. There's like 15 reasons why he can't leave, and I feel like that's not
Yeah.
connected to the idea of they're bad about humans being good or bad. And I
Right.
feel like they should have connected those two things and should have said, Jacob should be like, no, humanity is fundamentally good. And Man in Black said, no, I've seen them up close. They're bad. And he goes, want to bet? What do you get? You know, Jacob, there's nothing you can give me except, a way off the island or whatever. And he goes, fine. You know, if you win, you lead the island or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
meaning you leading the island means he can leave if he wants.
Right.
I feel like that should have been it, and then everything they do is about that. And it's proving both things at the same, what's at stake, basically bringing people to the island and playing out the game fulfills the bet, right? And we explore the nature of humanity, but then what's at stake is whether or not he can leave. And then and then the idea, maybe if he leaves, bad things will happen. But I just feel like that ruins, without that framework really being there, all of the stuff at the end doesn't really connect. None of the stuff about the names on the cave wall and Jacob dying, and then this interim period, and then Jack being the leader for a minute, and then Hurley leading, and because the questions never answered, right? So it's just a weird, you don't get that scene of, I told you, Jacob, they were all evil, or I told you, Man in Black, they were all good, whatever. Like, you don't get the answer to the question that starts the whole show.
Yeah.
And it would have been interesting if those two things were related, and it was just literally like, and that's again why he has to kill the candidates now, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe he has to set up that, he has to sort of prove that they're all bad, like all these remaining candidates are bad, selfish people, and he's going to set up some situation to prove that, right? And that'll therefore make him win or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that part would have. I would have liked the show that did that more. I think if it was really more, and that goes back to the loophole idea, right? About like having that really be a stronger part of his character, and really making the across the sea stuff be really palpable about what the show is really about, instead of just kind of like framing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they tried to work it in there, but it was awkward because they were trying to juggle the two ideas at the same time, and they didn't ever really figure out a way to fit them together. And yeah,
I did it, and it was easy.
Like I know, I don't know why they couldn't do it, but it's like on the one hand you have this grandiose philosophical debate about the nature of humanity, which does feel like it, ties in well with what they want to explore in terms of major theme for the show.
Yeah.
And it's also just an interesting thing to have, like, these major figures have conflict about, because it's obviously of general relevance to people. But then the other story is very mundane. The other story is, I want to leave and you won't let me, like, and that, it just kind of jars, like, that they're not they're just not even on the same level. And you're totally right. If they tie them together, it would have had more. I mean, I think the hard part about the bet is, how do I prove you wrong?
Well, I have the answer to that.
Okay.
The answer is, because I was just thinking about, well,
what's the stakes? Like, what do I have to do to prove you wrong so I can leave?
And so the first thing to say is, in typical Lost fashion, he could be wrong about how he needs to prove it, but so I'll just say that. But what he could say is, I have to prove you're all selfish, that you fundamentally only do things for selfish reasons, and none of And I was just thinking about the Sun and Jin scene, right? Jin deciding to sacrifice himself and die with Sun could have been a tally mark for Jacob. Aha! Humans will sacrifice their own lives for each other or whatever, you know what I mean? So Saeed, aha, tally mark for Jacob, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things like that, like, and you could even get on a deeper level about selfishness, right? Because even Kate wanting to come back for Claire, there's a selfish aspect to the fact that she has guilt, right? That there is something in it for her. So you get to the question of what is a truly selfish act, right? And maybe that would
Right.
be the point, Man in Black would have a philosophy saying humans are incapable of a truly selfish act. And then the point of the show would be some people, one person, Jack, or the whole Losties or whatever, at some point we see some version of a truly selfish act or something, right? That could be the framework where you could answer that question about, like, how do you prove if people are, it would have to come down to something subjective, right? In general, to sort of make the point be actionable. So something like that could have maybe worked, right? And I wish they could have even tied together the fact that Jacob, like, after he died, he was still kind of around a little bit, and then that weird phantom boy Jacob, like, it could have been this thing where even though Jacob was dead, because they hadn't find the bet was still ongoing, that he was still around in some form until the final tally is tallied or something, you
Right.
know or until he, because the candidates are still around, and one has to be chosen, right? So then Jacob's still here because he hasn't transferred power yet or something like that, right? But like Man in Black hasn't won the bet, so he hasn't taken control, so like Jacob's still in play, right? Like something like that maybe could have been a thing. Yeah, it would have been interesting, I think, to really because then it would have given Man in Black all this stuff Locke is doing at every single moment. Every time he's talking to a character, he is trying to prove his point. Every single time. Every time he's manipulating people, every time he's doing things, right? When he goes to the temple in Sundown and says, "Your leader's dead, follow me or you're going to die." He goes, "Look at these people. Like, they have no
Right.
conviction. How can humans be good with no conviction?
Yeah.
Or no understanding of who they follow and why." You know what I mean? It would
Yeah.
underline everything he does. If
Yeah.
in season 6 he's trying to win the bet so that he can do
Right.
what? Get his ultimate goal, which is to escape the island.
Right.
And man, the more I think about it, the more those two ideas, if they were connected, would feed off of each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
They would give each other weight.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. The getting off the island becomes less mundane because it's tied to a larger idea, and the larger idea like gets more weight because it's tied to a concrete plot element
Mm-hmm.
instead of just this like abstract like,
Yeah.
well, I disagree, and like where do we go from there? You know?
It's funny you said it that way. There's this relationship analogy called the kite and the rock, and it's this idea of a kite flying in the wind, but it's tied down and held down by a rock, and it illustrates the idea of like a complementary couple where like one is very stable, right, and low key, and but like gets the, because it's tied to the kite, it gets the excitement for being connected to the kite, right? And the kite is very excitable and high energy and all these things, but like without the rock it would fly away, right, and become
Right.
untethered. So anyway, it reminds me of that, like it's a
Yeah.
kite and a rock plot theme or something.
Yeah, yeah. The
uh,
argument's the kite and the rock is the leaving the
mhm.
island thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, I it's weird to, like that idea of rewriting the show and just like making, I never really like those things where fans are like, "I know better than you, I'm gonna rewrite your stuff." But
Right.
like but there is this idea of wanting to just see a version of what you think is better would look like, and just do it and go, is this better?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's not as easy as some make it sound. But yeah, I think it's a fun exercise because it does show like the difficulty, but sometimes it reveals things about the story that or connections or something that that can make you appreciate like what could have been, and also like maybe better understand why what they gave you didn't work.
Yeah.
It's I think it's an interesting thing to do, definitely. Although like my approach to it tends to be to try to change as little as I can, but like improve things on the margins. Because like coming up with the larger story arcs, it's like once you start messing with that stuff, it's like, you just destabilize like the whole show, and you just kind of just have to start from scratch almost. So I like trying to keep to the idea and just like, can we just like finesse this better? Can we pay attention to certain things?
Yeah, I was just thinking about Desmond, right? And that idea of, if Man in Black is trying to win the bet about the nature of humanity and this idea of maybe like selfishness or whatever, selflessness versus selfishness, Desmond would be a tally mark for Man in Black. Only wanting what he wants, not caring about what other people need.
Right.
Penny. I'm gonna leave the island and leave my friends behind. I don't care about them. And it would be interesting because he would seem on the surface as an example of a good hero.
Right.
But in the context of what Man in Black is trying to prove, he would be in the bad category. And I think that would be a really interesting story to point to make, right? To go, oh shit. And then maybe he has to realize that, right?
Right.
That, like, oh, I'm actually being really selfish by wanting my wife and kids happy. And safe at the expense of everybody else, know. So anyway, I was just thinking about that. Like that would have been again another way in season 6 they could have commented on these characters' storylines and got something more out of them.
Yeah.
Like Claire, oh my god, I'm about to fix this entire show with just this one tweak. Because now Man in Black could say, yeah, Claire, when I convinced you to leave your baby, like that was a test to see if you would do something selfless because, and for whatever reason he thinks she shouldn't have, or, whatever he would say is the reason he wanted her to do that, right? But like, Claire, you're actually one of the good ones. I didn't think a mother would abandon her child. But if it's in the child's best interest, you just proved me wrong, or something like that. Like that could have been a thing, right? And that could have explained why he did that. He could have even, the baby should be this island's no place for a child, and he wants Aaron to get off.
I feel like that was implied by what happened earlier. I mean, not in this season, obviously. I think that makes sense. I definitely think if I was going to cut something for Claire, I think the whole idea that the others have her baby, like that plot never worked.
But the others had her baby. He said so, didn't he? Maybe or not, because he didn't claim it. That I get the temptation to want to come back to Rousseau, but it just muddles the entire concept of Rousseau, because it becomes like, oh, Rousseau isn't just a person who had unique experiences and then had unique reactions to those experiences. She's actually just emblematic of some larger.
She was just example A of
which is like, okay, then then are you going to do that with other characters? You know, are you going to say that other characters who go through similar circumstances have the same outcome, right? Like, and it's weird. Yeah, it's weird to do that with Claire. And also because with Claire, it's related to Man in Black. You know, the others have my baby, you said, or whatever.
Right.
But like with Rousseau, well, I guess they're sort. I was trying to see if they're related. I guess Rousseau. Well, she knows about the smoke monster.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, like, with Rousseau thinks the others have her baby
because she saw the others take her baby.
They literally had her baby.
It was a lot more concrete in that case.
Yeah.
She was valid there. It was reasonable. I mean, she did like lose it at a certain point, but like, yeah, like she watched it happen. She watched another.
Well, that's the other thing that's the other thing that muddles it is that she was also, you know, Claire. This idea of Claire being claimed, right? But this idea that Rousseau also had a claiming experience, like she was around other people who were claimed. So
that's another aspect of how it muddles Rousseau's story, because it's like Claire is claimed and she's like Rousseau, but Rousseau was the only one on her team who wasn't claimed,
and also still, but she's like Claire, so
but they're the same. So it's like, but like, yeah, it doesn't line up very well. I feel like, you know, the idea that like Claire was convinced to leave Aaron behind. Like they could have played that if they want to hit the abandonment note. I think
that would have been it. Did they say that? What did they end up saying? Because I feel like that would have been the reveal. She should have been like, "Others have my baby." Oh no! And he's like, "Claire, no, you abandoned your child."
Yeah.
Like, oh, she deluded herself into thinking that. Because
that's what they should have done.
She couldn't admit that she abandoned him. Yeah, that's what it should have been.
They just don't have that. It's kind of like Saeed's thing, where they just, maybe we're supposed to think that that's the idea, but they don't actually show it. It's just like she finds out from Kate like what happened, and there's really no confrontation. Like at this point, like when she's hanging out there with the Man in Black, like it just doesn't seem like she's really come to terms with the fact that like, oh, that's what really happened, and like you lied to me. Like there's no confrontation about that, and I think that's very strange.
And it could have been a thing that if she was deluded and he just went along with her delusion, and that's why he lied, was because she started the lie first. And deal.
You know? Yeah, they could have told us that, you know, and she could have even said like. Yeah, like they could have made more out of it, basically, and that's the only way to really sell that. I think it's just it as it stands, it's just very flimsy. They get very little out of it, and so it's like, why even bring it up? Like it's doing very little for you.
It seems like it should have gone back to the whole thing in season 1, like I said before, about her gonna give the baby up for adoption, her feelings and guilt about that. And the whole idea that she's not supposed to raise the baby and all that kind of stuff, like it would have been interesting to come back to that, like specifically, if she had said something like that. Well, you know.
Yeah, I almost feel like in a longer season 6, we could have used a Claire flashback episode that like fleshed out a little more what happened between the super brief moments that we saw in season 4 and where we pick up here. Like I definitely think there should be room, just what they imply happened. Like I feel like there should be room for a story there that they could have told, you know, again, if they had more time.
I think that's the story. That's exactly the story. It should have been Claire is she abandons Aaron. She comes to think, I'm not supposed to raise him because I'm trapped on this island. Like when the psychic said I was supposed to raise him, this is what he meant. Right? I'm supposed to stay here and be with my dad or whatever. But
coming back to the psychic,
Aaron's supposed to go off the island, and then when Claire comes back, and I'm sorry, I keep saying Claire. When Kate comes back to the island, she could say, "Hey, Claire, I'm going to rescue you and bring you back to Aaron," and then you get conflict with Claire saying, "I'm not leaving the island."
Right. I
And
don't want to
now,
leave.
what Kate has to do the rest of the season is convince Claire to leave. So now Kate actually has a goal again.
Right.
That's what the storyline should have been: her trying to convince Claire to come back to Aaron, and it would have been the inverse of like season 1, where Claire didn't want to give Aaron up, you know, and all that stuff with the others trying to take her baby and stuff, right? So like that would have been the flip side, is like, oh, she doesn't want to be his mom again, and then she could have a scene about her fear of, I haven't seen him in forever, I don't know how to be a mom anymore, all that kind of stuff, right? And so that could have been Kate's whole thing, is like, I came back for Claire, I thought it'd be easy, I thought Claire would want to leave, but now she doesn't. Because what happens here is Kate has nothing to do once she gets once she's Claire in the temple. There's nothing for her to do anymore. She's dead weight.
Yeah. And it felt literally true in this episode, where it's just like
Where
carrying Kate around.
Yeah, she got a lot of salt water in that wound. I'm sure it stung. Yeah, so I think that would have been a way more interesting for Claire to have a character arc.
Yeah.
As a
It helps a lot when you have that. And it also improves Kate's story, which also was mismanaged. And they're paying the price for that right now by like not having anything for her to do, but like you said, just being dragged around like from place to place. It's I mean, there are a few characters like that, but like given the prominence of Kate in general on the show, it just feels
imagine if right before they get on the sub here, right, they're all like trying to get to the submarine, right? Imagine if between the Sundown episodes where, you know, I combine the two. Kate and Claire's Care. It's a little late right now. Where Kate finally reunites with Claire. She's like, "Hey, you know, I had Aaron and everything's great. Come back to the island." She's like, "What? Let's leave the island together and go home." And then Claire's like, "Huh? What? I'm with him. Whatever." Right? And she's like, and so imagine if in those all in the interviewing episodes between that and here, before they get on the sub, Kate had been trying to convince Claire to come with her, right? Some scenes of conflict, and Claire's like, no. And then by the time they get to the plan to get on the sub, Claire has now been convinced to leave with Kate. Now, imagine, to everyone's surprise, when they all get on the sub without Claire, and she's abandoned again after just what, you know, reuniting and connecting and convinced you know what I mean? It would have been a double whammy from what's already a double whammy with how the show is right now, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it'd be a triple whammy. Is 2 whammies a triple or a quadruple whammy? How do whammies multiply?
2 whammies should be a double whammy, right?
2 whammies, but it was already a double whammy. So, two double whammies. Is that a triple?
Oh,
is that a quadruple whammy?
That should be a quadruple, I think. Yeah.
All right.
2 times 2, right?
I mean, who's
feels right to me.
How whammy math works.
I don't know how whammy math works. Claude 2020.
Whammy math. That's a weird phrase. If you would it be a whammy mathematician or something?
Yeah.
Whammy something like that.
Whammy mathematician. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So anyway, I was just saying, you know, with that idea of Claire wanting to actually stay in that, because again, now, you know, Claire doesn't have any real objective or goal. She's got nothing strong, and I mean, nothing would be stronger for her character than either A, wanting nothing more than to get home to Aaron, or B, wanting nothing more to be as far away from Aaron as possible because she thinks that's what's best for him.
Yeah.
And she's in between the two. She's not picking either side. and
she's
that
just
makes it.
hanging out.
She's just hanging out. Like all these characters are just hanging out, and then she's upset when they leave her behind. But like to be fair, like, did you really want to leave?
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
you were fine
yeah. You
before,
didn't
so.
really act like it. Yeah, it's just very unclear what she even wants. It's like, yeah. Yeah, they're not tracking that at all.
Mm-mm. So, it's interesting. I think that's probably the one of the biggest things that it bums me out about the end of the story is it doesn't end well, for these characters. It doesn't it's almost like even though, these characters, some of the characters are dying here, it's almost like the way their stories are nonchalant a lot of ways and underdeveloped in a lot of ways. It's almost like they expected another season or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no, we'll have time to do this storyline later. It's like, huh? Yeah. So it's interesting. I think it, it's. I would say, given how they knew, they struck the deal with ABC to end 3 seasons, after season 3. So they knew when the end date was going to be. It's still amazing how unfocused a lot of the story is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And they've had that problem for years. I think, season 4 like felt tighter in
Yep.
terms of what the point of it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did all right. They were off to a strong start. The writer's strike did possibly alter it and maybe make it a little less coherent than it might have been, but overall, like, there was a direction and they arrived there. And I mean, the weird thing about it is it was like a pre-planned, like we knew where they were going to end up, which is unusual for a season.
And that's what makes it feel tight.
Yeah, that's true. Like there's a goal and they clearly like accomplish it, but with surprises along the way, because we don't know, first of all, how it's going to happen. And there's a lot of details that are thrown in there that are like, we couldn't have guessed from just the fact that we knew some of them were going to get off the island. But I do think in season 5, we definitely felt that, dragging our way through those episodes, like that it did start to get very, very messy and very lacking in a lot of ways. And I think it's interesting that, considering the fact that they always talked about how, because we have our hangups with the plot too, but the show's a character focused thing, like that's what we were really trying to pay off. Like, it does feel like they actually failed the characters too.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just, I don't know, it's like, well, damn, like
Mm-hmm.
what did you do? Like,
what did you do?
Even the thing that you were like, well, we're just worrying about this, we're not worrying about the cabin, and we're not worrying about all these like obscure details that they've mentioned along the way. Like, it's just about the characters and and they do get to sentimental moments, but they don't really build to those properly. It feels like the Flash Sideways gives them this clean break from the island storyline, so that like they can just like seamlessly transition into this big like reunion. Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's too easy for them to like, it's almost like a get out of jail free, like we can just dodge the issue of having character arcs because we have a reset button where all we have to do is like they wake up and they're like, oh shit, we're dead. Oh, now I'm reunited with my friends. Like it's I think it kind of undercuts the show in a way.
I was just gonna say about Jack, this whole, we're talking about their ending arcs here. Jack is at this point thinks he's on the island for a reason.
Yeah.
And he's talking to a smoke monster in the body of his dead friend. And I'm not sure why he hasn't realized maybe the reason that he's here is to stop this thing.
I agree. That does seem that does seem like a reasonable conclusion.
It's weird to and again this goes back to my original crackpot theory that the island was a prison ship from an alien prison ship from
Mm-hmm.
a different dimension, because it feels like the Losties are crash land in some like a prison or something, right? And one of the inmates is like, hey, let's all go escape together.
Mm-hmm.
And because they want to escape, they give that guy a pass, but they don't realize that, oh, it's actually bad if he wants to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And the wool is pulled over their eyes because they want the same, they're united in their goal. But and because they want to leave too, it's like, oh well, he wants what we want, he must be fine. It's like, no, it's actually bad what he wants because of who he is specifically. And so that's what's weird is I guess it's just counterintuitive, and you wouldn't think that. Although, but what's weird is Jack puts that together, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess he doesn't. He hasn't yet said. So he did intuit. Man in Black can't kill us directly. He wants us to do
Right.
it ourselves, which means he wants us dead.
Right.
But he hasn't put together that, like, quote, his purpose would be to stop him.
Yeah, he didn't get that far. Strangely, it does seem like he's walking right up to it.
Yeah, I guess Jacob will tell him when.
Jacob is literally gonna tell him, yeah, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
That's what it takes to get there. I don't know. Yeah, I do feel like he did leap a little bit. He intuited the rules, which was a bit strange.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jack's intuition came into play. I was just thinking another interesting framework for the show could have been this idea of like this idea of the island not being done with him and things like that. Like an idea where almost like in like medicine or biology, right? Like the Losties are like white blood cells, and like Man in Black is the infection, or the virus, and their job is to deal with him. Either because that's what white blood cells do, is they
right,
they glob onto the foreign agent, right? And so encasing it like a prison. So it'd be interesting if that idea of like that's why the island was calling them and wanting these people, basically summoning protectors, and so that's why they're there. What they need to do is like stop this thing from spreading off the island and into the rest of the body of the world, or whatever the metaphor would extend out to. Just spitball an idea.
Yeah. That's something that I noticed when I watched the first Solitary, the first Rousseau episode, when she's talking to Sayid about the sickness. She's like, I forget how she phrased it, but it was like I couldn't let that get out in the world.
Yes.
That's why I had to kill my team. Like I couldn't risk it spreading, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I didn't even remember that was brought up, because it does feel like they don't quite follow through on that idea, and that could tie in with the Man in Black's escape, as being sort of a version of the sickness.
Well, he's the carrier. He's the vector.
Yeah, he's the carrier, exactly. Yeah, like he's a manifestation of it, or some kind of super spreader or something. I don't know.
I mean, viruses do, hide themselves and, shapeshift, if you will. They are airborne like a smoke monster. And that's all the similarities. Name them all.
That's a lot. More than I might think.
Yeah, but it's just weird that it's still at this point of the show they're like, oh, Widmore, and it's like, guys, like, what is even a Widmore at this point? Like, it's like, no one is he the bad guy? Really, he's the bad guy. Like, you guys don't even care about Widmore. Yeah.
Why is a Widmore?
Yeah. When is a Widmore?
Yeah, no, it's not convincing. The Widmore element of this season definitely doesn't work, and I think it either needs to be completely rewritten or removed to save that for something else, because I don't think there's any aspect of it that actually works. I'm trying. I'm thinking. Let me know if I missed
Which
something.
aspect works? Yeah. Please, we'll all be quiet as you list the ways it works. Go.
Like the only thing I'm thinking is he killed the Ajir passengers, so they don't have to deal with that. Like, that's
I
very
have said it before,
Smoke
and I'll say
Monster
it
could have done that.
again. Widmore's goal. Listen, there's several problems with Widmore, right? Like the impetus of why he comes back is a problem because it's something with Jacob and it's all off screen and who knows why.
Yeah,
I think they should have done something simple, like Jacob's like, "Hey, I need you to get Desmond back to the island for reasons," and he's like, "Okay," but he realizes that the smoke monster is at play here, and so he starts off doing what Jacob tells him to do, but his secret plan, which they sort of show a little bit of, right, is to take Jin's documents about the pockets of energy that he found in his surveying of the 70s. And Widmore wants to basically find the light cave or find a network of the electromagnetism and like blow it up. He's like, I know how to get rid of the smoke monster. I don't care about the island. I'm not trying to Jurassic Park this place, right? It's not about the money anymore. Everybody needs to die. I'm gonna blow this thing up, and so it becomes this dual antagonist thing, right? Where the Losties have to stop Man in Black, but they also need, for their own safety, they have to stop Widmore,
right?
You know, and what's weird is, again, so much of the weirdness of the season is, especially here, is the characters' goals are not diametrically opposed, and therefore they're messy, and they're some of them are kind of on the same team, and some of them are kind of not, and some of them kind of know what's happening, some kind of don't. And Widmore's got a gun on a person, but aren't we on the same side? Don't we not want, aren't we against Men in Black, or are we against you? We don't know, because we don't know what you want. You don't know what you want. Nobody knows what anybody wants.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that, the part of the problem start there, right? And if Widmore had a defined goal of what he was trying to do in order to get his ultimate victory, whatever that is, he should have been enacting that regardless of any other plot lines, right? He should have had a goal. And then, if Man in Black comes and does something unexpected, or Sawyer washes up on your fucking sub,
yeah,
you figure it out, and but like it seemed like they had a plan when Widmore first got to the island, and it ended with them shocking Desmond, and like that's as far as they got to their plan.
Yeah.
For what Widmore was going to do on the island. And I feel like he should have gone to it should have been like, oh, the thing we did with part 1 worked. Whatever we were doing with Desmond, or whatever reasons we did it, success, cool. Now we'll go to part 2, which is our evil part. We're going to go in that light cave, and we're going to do the same thing there, right? Now that we've calibrated the machine to whatever spectral frequency we need to copy what Desmond does when he does his special qualities, right? Now that we've got that, we're going to go into the light cave and blow it up, or what, what I mean? Like they could have tied those together, because what Widmore needs is a second goal at this point that the Losties can be opposed to or in line with, but not like kind of with, or not with, or who knows with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's bizarre. Widmore is like stuck between like, oh no, I'm a good guy now, and I'm the same old Widmore. It's like
Schrodinger's Widmore.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I'm here to help you and stop the Man in Black, but also I'm going to be shooting at you soon and pointing guns at you and like rigging bombs on your plane. And it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What's your deal, man? Yeah, I think that it would definitely be. But as you say it, I do feel like the way they wrote the Widmore story is an example of the kind of thing we were talking about earlier of like writing the story in a way where like it's based on where they know they're going. It's not based on like a kind of logical idea of like what this character wants and why and how that kind of evolves over time based on what happens. Because it's like it just it's like they know that he's never going to enact a plan, so they don't ever actually develop a plan. Like it's just they just develop the little parts of it that they
I guess
need.
that's the question, right? If Man in Black wasn't on the island here, what would Widmore have done? He comes to the island, he has Desmond, he zaps him. I don't know what else happens after that. And then what? Like, what does he do? What's next?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a test, so it makes me think he was planning to take Desmond somewhere else, maybe the cave.
So then he puts the Losties in a cage in the but for why? I guess just to keep them somewhere. But like, I guess he's trying to keep them away from Man in Black, maybe, I guess, because they're candidates, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's the idea.
Yeah, it's messy.
He's supposed to protect him because Jacob sent him there. But yeah, they could have also written it where like Jacob sent him, but he has his own agenda or something. He's still, they could like validate that whole thing of when Man in Black is with Desmond at the well, and he's like, Charles Widmore isn't interested in answers. All he wants is power or something. It's like this weird line. I listened to us talk about it quite a bit on that podcast, the season 6 review, because like we were really trying to make it, because there's really nothing we've been shown that would lead us to believe that it's true. That I mean, actually, for me, like both aspects. It doesn't seem like he wants any kind of answers in particular, and B, it doesn't seem like he's going after power either. It just seems like the Man in Black is like wrong about everything there, and I don't even know why he's saying that to Desmond.
Why are you talking? Yeah, it's weird because Widmore's goals, right, over the whole show, one was he was leader of the island, he got ousted by Ben.
Yeah.
Then he
was
a business magnate, international. But the other thing was, Penny. He wants a relationship with Penny, right?
Yeah.
That. He stops caring about that like very soon. And then at the end, there's getting rid of Ben, getting back at Ben, right? The whole Kimi thing. So capturing Ben, but that's all about getting back to the island. And so through that season 4 stuff, it all tracks. The main plot points of Widmore kind of still make sense, right? And then there's something that happens where he seems to stop wanting what he originally wanted. And I guess that's what that line is getting at. He just wants power. That's the old Widmore.
Yeah.
But that's not what we've been seeing him do on the island. It hasn't been clear what that means, it'd be, because it would have been interesting if Jacob, in order to convince Widmore to come back to the island or bring Desmond back, said something about what's at stake here is who's leading the island, whatever. You've got to take Desmond back to protect those who are there. Otherwise, otherwise, I don't know, something that tells Widmore that he has a shot at getting the island back.
Yeah.
He's used this as an opportunity, right? Because he hasn't. It took him forever to find the island, right? So, like, it's hard to find, and hard to get to. So Jacob's going to give him a free ticket back to the island, and if he's really a bad guy, he's going to use that for nefarious reasons.
Yeah.
And then try to do his plan, right? And so it seems like they should have just had I don't know. It should have just been clearer. I don't know what his goal was. You know,
Yeah.
or like you know, if I kill Men in Black, I'll be the leader of the island or something. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they could have had like the Man in Black when he goes to try to recruit
Hmm.
Ben. He's like, well, I'm gonna leave this island, but someone needs to be in charge when I'm gone. How about you? I'll give you the island. You know,
Hmm.
he offers that to Ben. Like he could have done that with Widmore, for example, since that's something Widmore wanted at least at one point.
Yeah, or you could totally have Widmore be evil and say, you know, oh, if Man in Black is dead and everybody else is dead, then I'm the leader of the island. You know, so I also want to kill everybody. You know, you could have him
Hmm.
have the exact same goal as Man in Black. Yeah, I want to kill all you guys too because I want to just leave the island.
Yeah.
Um, and have him, you know, be the bad guy still. But yeah, it's a weird it's a weird turn.
Yeah, he's just stuck. And they did have that one line where he's like, Jacob showed me the error of my ways. And that is supposed to make up for that, whatever it was that turned him from the, maniacal tycoon character
Mhm.
that he was for most of the show to like whatever this mushy thing is that's just like, oh, I don't know, I'll point a gun at you or I'll help you, I'm not sure what I'm
Every
doing
other scene is
anymore.
different. Yeah.
He's just like really stuck in this weird mode of like I'm kind of acting like the old Widmore, but
It
my
just yeah, the thing about it though that's overriding all of this is it just doesn't matter about Widmore. Like we're not
yeah.
convinced at all that like he's what we should be focused on. And then so all of these story points about like, oh no, he put the bomb on the plane. He wanted to kill you guys, and
Mm-hmm.
oh no, he put you in a cage, and it's just like, but Man in Black's over here. Like,
Yeah.
you guys aren't going to convince us that Widmore is any bigger of a threat. And again, like if Widmore had a secret plan to kill them all, then that would have worked because then we would have said, oh well, we're not gonna. Widmore can't be the big bad, you know, he
Yeah.
can't be that big of a threat because we've got Man in Black here. But then that would have been misdirection, and then we would have been like, oh, wow, he was trying to kill them all. That's surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Like a secondary villain kind of thing.
yeah, because they want him to fulfill that role, but
They clearly
it's
do,
not
yeah.
convincing that he's pulling it off.
Yeah, yeah. They're kind of stuck with the fact that they've also written this other stuff that
He's supposed to have
makes
seen the
it,
error of his ways, so
yeah.
you can't be the bad guy unless he's like, Jacob showed me the error of my ways. I should have been more bad. I wasn't bad enough.
I failed to, that was my
Or,
one error.
or my error was I told everyone I was bad. I should have just kept it a secret.
Mm-hmm.
Lied about being good.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so vague. Like it could mean that. Like who knows? Like it's really covering up like for such a little developed story.
Mhm.
I just question the whole idea. He brings Desmond back. He deals with the Ajir passengers. He provides the submarine. Um, but it's all very functional. There's no larger purpose to the character.
And I guess you have to question, why did Widmore's people shoot Kate? Was that an accident? Were they just trying to shoot Man in Black?
Or did
Like,
they intend to shoot Kate because she was
were
the
they gonna?
one who wasn't on the list? Like, did they actually plan
But,
that?
what was the? But why shoot her? I mean, what were they? They were gonna just shoot everybody, right? So why?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
reason they were threatening to shoot Kate was to control them to get him in the cage. So
right.
killing her here won't help them control the losses. So
Yeah, they're just trying to stop him from taking the sub. So it's really just like shoot anybody there
shoot
to stop
anybody,
him.
and yeah.
Yeah, it is weird that it's like the one they threatened earlier, as though
Well,
like
why even shoot? Why not be like, we're on your side, guys.
right.
Aren't
what
they?
are you doing?
I mean, are
Yeah,
they?
I guess you know, I guess the idea is that like the Man in Black did they shoot first?
Who
Like
shot first?
how did that all start? I'm forgetting now.
One shot first, as we all know.
Let's see. Okay.
Yeah, they shot Kate first.
They shot Kate first.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's weird. That's a good point. That's a good point. Like they should have come out and had a negotiation first. Because like I think the Man in Black has tried to convince them, the Losties, that Widmore is bad.
Mhm.
And so like I could buy them shooting at Widmore more
Mhm.
than the other way around at this point, because like I guess like what we have to believe is that like, you know, they see Locke there and they're
But
shooting
Locke in the
because
water. Jack pushes Locke in the water. I mean, he is sort of there, but Jack pushes Locke in the water, and then moments later, Kate gets shot. So like,
okay,
not
yeah,
like he
that's a
puts Locke in
mess.
fire. Yeah.
That's a mess. Why did they do it like that?
Why did they do it that way? Yeah.
I don't
Know.
understand.
I don't know why. I would maybe there's a deleted scene where like Widmore's like, "Why did you shoot Kate Austin?" And somebody's like, "I guess I overreacted." Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. It's I mean, obviously it's contrived. They shooting Kate first and foremost because they need to incapacitate her character for a couple scenes. So that's the
Right.
main reason. But it's weird that it wasn't that they didn't just start firing and then like everybody starts ducking and shooting back. And then
Right.
at the crossfire, right, Kate gets shot accidentally. But because if she gets shot first, it feels like it was targeted and they meant to kill her.
Yeah. They could have had like a standoff where it's like, you know, don't take that sub. No, we're taking this sub. You know, like where it escalates more instead of just like boom, because it does seem like they pushed it like too far too fast. Because like they don't even know what's going on there.
And I think they also, though, you know, now we get the added benefit of feeling like Widmore is okay. He's the bad guy now. His people just did this, so maybe that's another reason why.
Right.
To be convinced that Widmore's bad.
It's like it validates the Man in Black's point, and they're trying to like pull off the surprise reveal that he was planning to kill them the whole time, and like what he told them was Widmore's plan was actually his plan.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe it is also just to sell the idea, and it doesn't actually work, except for, you know, what they want to manipulate the audience to think.
Sounds like TV to me. All right, man. Well, I think we covered.
Have we covered this one enough?
I think we have.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, next time we have the infamous Across the Sea, so that'll be fun.
I can't think of anything bad about that episode, so I can't wait to rewatch it.
It's been so long since I've seen it. I feel like I've forgotten like half of what I hated about it, but yeah, it'll be interesting to revisit it from this like modern point of view, and maybe even we can fix it. We'll see.
We can fix anything with enough time and money and podcasts.
Oh, those words, they're so applicable to so many situations.
All right. Well, until next time, thanks and namaste.
Namaste and good luck.